Testing the speakers of StreamYard. Sounds like it's working.
I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
All right. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show, and you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and every other Sunday. I want to give a shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble, and welcome back, guys. We have an interesting show for you tonight. Tonight's theme is Here is the Reality. Yes, quite a bit to discuss. We are going to do call-in tonight after the show. I figured you guys would want to. But first and foremost, let's go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. Really do appreciate you, fam. Patrons in the house. All right. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories: Ultimate, Sabinators. Don't forget about the Sabsters because they be doing their thing too, okay? Of course, we also have Sabbies. Hey. And don't forget about members. All of their names are listed here. You'll also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker throughout the show. And I want to give a shout out to new Sabby patrons. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up for Stephen Frimmer and Frank Rigaud. Thank you. Thank you guys so much. And welcome, fam. Tonight's show is going to be a little bit different. And I do want to say something before we get into the convo with Cenk. So first and foremost, you guys know, who have been watching me for quite some time, this show is not an echo chamber. I say this over and over again. I've interviewed a number of people on this show that I disagree with. And there are things that I disagree with Cenk on as well, as you are going to see. So I want to make that very clear because some people are not happy about this conversation. That's fine. That's totally up to them. But this show is not an echo chamber. There are going to be people that come on that you disagree with. There are people come on that you do agree with. And I think that's part of the reason why some people do like this show. So we're going to get into that. And I do want to also before we get into the discussion, we recorded this yesterday. I believe I told you guys about this on Call-In. We recorded it yesterday because of the timing. But we're going to premiere it tonight during the live stream. And then we're going to get into the other news stories. I was honestly kind of surprised. Like going into this conversation, I expected yelling. This is what I expected coming into this back and forth with Cenk. I expected yelling. I expected that. That didn't happen. So I was kind of surprised by that. But I do want people to understand that this is not about drama. This conversation is about coalition building. What does coalition look like? This conversation is about mutual aid. It's about third parties. It's about organizing. This conversation, for the majority of it, is about moving forward and organizing. And my hope with this conversation is that maybe it will reach some people that do watch TYT who may feel like maybe electoral politics is their only option. Elections come and go, and people need something to do, especially during those times when it's not election season. I told you guys before, no politician is going to save you. And my hope is that maybe this message could reach some of those people as well. So that was my hope going into this conversation. But you will see throughout this discussion, we obviously have different strategies, and we have different opinions on how to get wins for people. But my job is to convince people that there are other ways to do this, and that hoping that a politician is going to save you, from my experience, has not been the answer. So I wanted to say that before we get into that convo, because I think a lot of people, they saw this on Twitter and they're like, oh, all we're going to hear about is he's just going to talk about Jimmy Dore. That did not come up in this conversation at all. At all. No, this conversation is about organizing, what a coalition looks like. There is pushback, like back and forth. But my goal is that hopefully this does reach people, that some of them that watch TYT, so they can say like, oh, I didn't know about mutual aid. I didn't know about 11 demands. I didn't know about all these other things that we could be doing. So that is my goal with the conversation. So let's go ahead and show that thumbnail, ladies and gentlemen. So I should reiterate, this live stream is not pre-recorded. We're live, but this conversation was pre-recorded because it was yesterday. This was yesterday during a different time. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, what are we discussing? Of course, so the convo with me and Cenk. We're also going to get into AOC presidential tour. That's what I'm calling it now, because it seems to be very clear. I'll get into this, guys. All the signs seem to be pointing to the fact that AOC is going to run in 2028. We're going to get into that, and I'm going to tell you why I'm very concerned, very, very concerned. We're also going to discuss, this shit was wild. I don't know if you guys saw this, but Marjorie Taylor Greene and another Republican politician, they had town halls yesterday, and both of them were confronted. So we're going to get into that and about how some of their constituents are feeling about them at this point in time. We're also going to discuss the Black male college decline. Roger Meadows, I believe, was the one who sent me this story. And this New York Times article, there's a couple of things that I need to debunk. So there's a couple of things, just a little bit that I need to debunk there. And also, last but not least, we're also going to get into the Gen Z burnout story. And I also have an update about Carmelo Anthony, what happened with his family. So I do want to get into that as well. Again, just a reminder, we will do call in tonight after the show. The theme tonight is Here is the Reality. Let's go ahead and get into this convo here with Cenk Uygur. Let me make sure my settings are set. Okay, there we go. All right, let's go ahead and get into this. Get comfy, get popcorn, get cozy, whatever you need to do. Let's go ahead and bring this in. And I am going to, because the names are scrolling across the screen during this, I'm going to take away the patron banner at the bottom so it doesn't get confused. And then I am going to slide to make this. There we go. My special guest today is Cenk Uygur. He is the founder of the Young Turks. Cenk, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So I have quite a number of questions for you. First and foremost, obviously, a lot of people, I think, were disappointed after the 2024 presidential election results. You made a statement that you thought that now was the time to maybe try to have a coalition with MAGA on these issues where we do agree. And I want you to talk a little bit about that. And the other part of that question that I have is, do you feel differently now that Donald Trump has been in office for at least 3 months, and why or why not?
Yeah, all great questions. So first off, I worked so hard to make sure that Donald Trump didn't win. And we did this Trump madness thing, the 64 worst things he's ever done. I did half a dozen debates against conservatives, might have been actually close to a dozen on our air. I went on their air. I tried to convince anybody and everybody to, not necessarily to vote for the Democrats who are not very inspiring, but to vote against Donald Trump. Why? Because, and the case I made for them was, look, the guy doesn't respect our form of government. He just doesn't. I'm not worried about, hey, a Republican wins and we're going to get different immigration policies, different economic policies. I don't agree with those policies, but we'll live to fight another day. With Trump, I was worried that we couldn't live to fight another day. I think the 2028 election is going to be the most important election of our lifetimes. And people say that about every election, but I believe it. I think it's going to be an absolutely pivotal turning point. And I wanted to get to that pivotal turning point. I want to get to 2028. And so why did I think so negatively of Trump? Because A, he lost the election and didn't leave, and he came up with a fake elector plot, which we talked about a million times on the Young Turks, right? And so that is a real attempt at a coup in America. So that guy doesn't respect democracy or the Constitution. And then afterwards, he said, after he lost, that we should terminate the Constitution. A lot of the right wing had never even seen that quote. And so, and I could go on and on, right? So is Trump what we expected? Yeah. And so I get why a lot of Democrats are confused, because I was trying to push Biden out, and we've been trained as Democrats and on the left by MSNBC and other folks that if you're against Trump, then you have to say the most wonderful things about the Democratic candidate, and and it doesn't matter. They could literally be falling apart if it seems like Joe Biden, but if you just prop them up enough and you do enough marketing and propaganda, our guys will win, right? So don't ever point out if they've got problems. But in this case, he couldn't speak. Our candidate couldn't talk. And you saw it at the debate, and all of the smart political professionals finally saw what I was talking about, not at the debate, but when Joe Biden refused to do the Super Bowl interview, right? That's when he lost Nate Silver and Ezra Klein and David Axelrod and Carville, because they know that if you can't do the Super Bowl interview, the softest interview and the one that has the biggest reach, that means you're not even running a campaign. So I was attacking Biden not because I'm against the Democratic Party, but because I wanted the Democratic Party to win by having a stronger candidate. So now once we lose, not only did we lose, unfortunately, as I said, we should have had an open convention. We should have had the strongest possible candidate. Instead, we always anoint, and then they anointed Kamala Harris, basically. And so we lost not only all 7 swing states, but we lost the popular vote. So now, having talked to a lot of these right-wingers in those debates and appearances, et cetera, I began to see something a little bit different than I expected. Well, in the past, when I talked to right-wingers on Fox News or anywhere else, they're just talking point machines, right? And so, tax cuts for the rich are great for the average guy. Helping giant corporations are great for small business. Whatever Mitch McConnell and, Heritage Foundation cooked up, they would just regurgitate, right? So now when I talk to them, that was still 70% of what folks are doing. But 30% was very different. They're very, very anti-war, when before the Republican Party was very pro-war, right? Whether they mean it or not is really great and important open question. So, without getting getting into all of the details on all the policies. What I did after the election was, guys, if they're really anti-war, we need to build a coalition with them if Trump, for example, tries to attack Iran. And I know that Trump is going to be pushed to attack Iran because his largest donor is Miriam Adelson, and she wants us to attack Iran. She's a hard right-wing Israeli American, but she seems to, in her donations and in her demands, care more about Israel. That's not true of normal Israeli Americans, or certainly not true of Jewish Americans, but it is true of her, right? And so I know, watch out, they're going to want to attack Iran. So if I can, and if all the left does is go, oh, we hate what Trump is doing, it doesn't move him an inch, not 1 inch. In fact, it might help him because he's like, look, we're owning the libs. If, on the other hand, he loses his base or a significant percentage of his voters, then he gets worried. So, for example, he said, we're going to take control of Gaza in the first meeting with Netanyahu, and we're going to do the unexploded bombs and clean that up for Israel, et cetera. And it looked like he was saying ground troops in Gaza. And he turned around on that in 24 hours. Why? Because his base revolted, not because the left revolted. Again, that doesn't move him at all, right? So his base was like, no, we're not doing ground troops in Gaza. I don't know what you're talking about, right? So he goes, no, I didn't mean that, right? But here come the donor class again. So Netanyahu shows up a little while ago, and they're back to talking about how we're going to control and own Gaza, right? So you've got to build that coalition to be able to effectively push back on that, to make sure that we don't get hurt more by the Trump administration, and to kind of open up their eyes to things that are happening, right? So when you only watch Fox News and you never watch any left-wing programming, we can't say to them, hey guys, remember how you were anti-war and you wanted to cut the Pentagon budget? You see how they actually added to the Pentagon budget? Because they were never going to hear you. But now if you go on Patrick Bet-David and Tim Pool and all these other different right-wing shows and independent shows, et cetera, and you go, hey guys, let's cut defense. And they go, yeah, let's cut defense, which, by the way, they did. You can see videos from Patrick Bet-David, Tim Pool, and the other shows that I was on where they're like, you're right, we should cut defense. And then Patrick Bet-David, after I did that appearance, did this long video about how you could cut defense. And then now all of a sudden it goes to Laura Ingraham and it's on Fox News, et cetera. That doesn't mean that I think that they're actually going to cut defense. So when they actually added over $100 billion to defense, you could begin to see some portion of his voters on social media going, what just happened? I thought we were cutting it. Why are we adding to it, right? So is that most of his voters? No. Is that some of his voters? Definitely. Is that the sum that we need to switch over to vote on our side, or to just support us on those policies we agree on and to potentially move Trump? Yes. So that's a way of a strategic way of trying to regain the middle. So there's a lot more nuance to it, but I've got a long explanation here, so I'll stop there.
So I'm glad you mentioned anti-war because I want to tell you what happened a couple years ago. I went to DC to cover a rally called the Rage Against the War Machine rally, and there were people there from different political ideologies. And I remember covering that, thinking to myself, looking around like, wow, look at all these people came together because they agree on this issue. There were people that were speaking there like Tulsi Gabbard, Dennis Kucinich, Jill Stein was one of the speakers. And I was like, wow, this is something. But then October 7th happened. And after October 7th, when Donald Trump started to smear Palestinians, I watched some of those same people make excuses for Donald Trump. And then all of a sudden, that so-called anti-war coalition that I believed we had at that point in time, it was gone, because as we got into the electoral season, people went back into their political silos and started to defend their candidate. So the problem that I've noticed with this particular type of coalition building, and I'm a registered independent, by the way, is that once there is an election that is involved, people tend to side with their candidate, even when they're wrong. Now, to be fair, some of them have told me they do not appreciate what Trump is doing when it comes to Iran, when it comes to Gaza, but they don't regret. They're not at the point where they regret their vote. But I think that's where the coalition, to me, it falls apart, because I see people still find ways to defend Donald Trump, just like I saw people try to find ways to defend Kamala Harris. So that's where I've seen it fall apart. And I felt like the anti-war part was a piece where you could get more people to come together. Same thing with healthcare. I had this conversation recently with Shermichael Singleton. He's conservative. Shermichael Singleton agreed with me on this show that the healthcare system we have in this country is a problem. However, he went on to say he doesn't think universal healthcare is going to be the answer. He doesn't agree with that. So I don't see them moving over to progressive positions. That's my thing.
Yeah, Sabby, I actually totally agree with you, and and I get what you're saying, but I want you to have a bigger picture context. So what you did in that conversation about healthcare, and what I'm trying to do in all the conversations I'm having, is the very beginning of this, right? So for years and maybe decades, we've just been yelling at each other, right? And by the way, I'm totally guilty of that. I mean, I'm so I do tend to yell from time to time on air, right, and online. So it's not like I didn't do it. I definitely did, right? And so, and that worked to win over the middle for some period of time, but now that's not working at all in terms of winning over the middle. And these conversations are. But Trump, we're 3 months into his term. If anyone thought like, oh, magically, some percentage of Trump's voters, let alone all of his voters, but like a big chunk, 20, 30%, overnight are going to be like, oh, I was such an idiot for voting for Trump. No way. I'm now for universal health care. I'm actually for anti-war. I don't want the rich getting taxes. I don't want this, blah, 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 blah. Come on. Of course, that's not going to happen in this tiny period of time. Sabby, what you and I have to do, what so many other people have to do, and what you're already doing, is continue to have those conversations and to actually engage in, yeah, I know it sounds cliched and people think it's not real, but I think it is real, especially online now. And it's not a perfect system at all, but there is an actual marketplace of ideas. And so if you don't engage in that marketplace, you're never going to win eventually, right? But if we engage today and we keep making our case, by the time 2028 rolls around, yes, we can win a certain percentage of those folks. And for the ones that did vote for Trump that are either independents or right wing, what I would say to them is, guys, we're not trying to trick you. We're trying to show you that they've been trying to trick you. So if they actually cut the Pentagon, great. Then you got what you wanted, right? If they don't attack Iran, great, right? If they actually deliver for the average man, great, no problem. Then you were right and we were wrong, right? But what I'm trying to lay out to them, and it sounds like you're doing something similar in some ways, is that, but when they don't deliver for you, remember what we told you, right? Remember that we were both anti-war. We both wanted better health care. We both wanted better wages. So they said, give it to the rich, et cetera, and that didn't work, did it, right? So why don't you try the populist left that actually has in some issues has the same goal as you, but actually will deliver for the average guy instead of for Donald Trump and his billionaire buddies. You see what I'm saying?
But what about when it comes to some of the social issues? For example, Charlie Kirk, and he's not the only one, but he's the easiest one for me to call out at this point in time. Charlie Kirk has been smearing MLK of all people. Charlie Kirk said that he wouldn't feel comfortable with a Black female pilot. So when we talk about building coalitions, we also do have to remember that those spaces need to be comfortable spaces for people that are from marginalized communities as well. And I personally would not feel comfortable building a coalition with someone out there smearing MLK and saying all these things about Black people, all these negative things about Black people. So I think that's where a lot of the pushback comes from, Cenk. I think that's why some people are saying, what is Cenk Uygur thinking about? There's no way I'm going to try to organize with this person. They don't even respect me as an individual. I mean, what do you say to that? Like, how do you expect marginalized people to feel?
Yeah. So I think the word you use there is critical, which is comfortable, right? They're uncomfortable in those spaces. Okay. No problem. I get that. And it's not for everybody. Then let me do it. But please try not to tear me down while I'm doing the uncomfortable thing that I think might help. Right. So let me give you an example from my background so you know what I'm talking about. So if I go on Steve Bannon's show and let's say that we agree on private equity companies shouldn't be able to buy our homes because it drives up housing prices. They're going to turn us all into renters eventually. And we're going to be indentured servants of the corporate class. Right. And if it turns out Bannon agrees with that, I am not sure that he does, but he might. And Charlie Kirk says that he agrees with that and has pushed it on his show. But I know Steve Bannon is viciously against immigrants, and I'm an immigrant. And in the past, he's been viciously anti-Muslim, and I'm Muslim, right? Muslim background. So if somebody else who's in the same category as I am, immigrant, Muslim, says, I don't want to talk to Steve Bannon, that makes me uncomfortable. And I don't want to be in a coalition with him. I think he's really a harmful person, a terrible person, etc. Okay, no, I'm not going to push you to do that. God bless. I totally get it, right? But if I can get that thing done, whatever it might be that's positive, anti-war, protecting housing prices, paid family leave, which a lot of the right wing wants, 74% of the right wing want paid family leave because they think it helps moms and actually incentivizes children, etc. So if we can get that done, that matters. It matters to people's lives. You either get the paid family leave or you don't. Your housing prices actually go up or they don't, right? So I'm willing to put aside how much I can't stand Steve Bannon's opinions on Muslims, on immigrants, and by the way, on other issues, including Trump should run for a third term. It's maniacal. It's unconstitutional. I'm willing to get into the most, knock out, drag out, whatever fight there is on those grounds. But if we can build a coalition to prevent an attack on Iran, like, for example, Tucker Carlson, loathsome in 1,000 ways, right? And is against my identity and my beliefs in 1,000 ways. But he really doesn't want to attack Iran. If you say, I'm going to turn down that coalition, I'm going to say, no, you don't listen to Tucker Carlson. We should attack Iran because Tucker doesn't want to. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Because it matters. Like attacking or not attacking Iran matters. So I'm willing to put aside how uncomfortable I am and how much I disagree with them on those other issues to be able to potentially one day build a coalition that could actually prevent these things, right? So again, the skeptics will always find a reason to be a skeptic. So they'll say, no, I don't believe Tucker. I don't believe it. And by the way, Tucker Carlson and Steve Bannon give you a million reasons not to believe it, right? But no, Tucker's like very adamantly against that Iran war. If you say, no, everything he says is a lie, okay, then is it a lie when he says that, he hates immigrants? That doesn't seem like it's a lie, right? Like, so he's trying to appeal to his audience, and he thinks his audience doesn't want to attack Iran. So take the win on that category. And if you're not comfortable doing it, that's okay. Let me do it. But please try to not hurt that effort so we can actually get the policies we agree on.
So people are saying that TYT has changed. I mean, when I first started watching TYT, it was the home of progressives. I understand some of this. Some people believe that this is a business decision that you have made because I think we both know that there is more leverage, and YouTube highly promotes right-wing commentary over left commentary. Some people have that opinion. One of the things that I said is that it sounds like to me that Cenk and Anna have decided that they need to try to get some type of a win, because it's been almost 10 years now since the first Bernie Sanders presidential campaign. But a number of things have happened. I want to give you a chance to respond to this. Some of the co-hosts or contributors of TYT have left TYT. I know that Francesca recently was fired. And I'm noticing a little bit of a pattern. This is something similar to what I saw with the Hill Rising, where Kim Iverson was there. Well, first Crystal and Sagar left, then Ryan Grimm came, then Kim Iverson came, Breonna Joy Gray came, Katie Halper was a contributor, and all of them are gone, right? They didn't want Kim there because of the pandemic conversation with Fauci. They didn't want Katie Halper there because of her commentary on Israel. Breonna Joy Gray got fired because of Israel. And now I look at Rising today and I'm like, wow, they really got rid of a lot of the good talent. What is happening there with TYT? Has TYT changed its values?
No, not at all. So there's a number of things in there that I don't think are quite right in the assumptions that you put in there. So let me address it one by one. First of all, I get why people think, hey, are you guys doing it for, is there a right-wing turn, and is it for financial reasons? Well, and why do people think that? Because other people have done it, and then they've gotten rewarded, like Dave Rubin, with tons of money showered from the right wing, etc. But except in our case, that's not true at all, because A, we haven't made the right wing turn, so there's nothing to shower, right? So, like, if you watch our videos or our live show, which, by the way, every day, Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 o'clock, you can see it with your own eyes. And if you see us being like right wing, you could be like, aha, I knew it. There it is, right? They're telling me how wonderful Donald Trump is on tax cuts for the rich, or whatever lunatic thing he came up with yesterday, right? Or if you see it and you go, wait a minute, these guys are saying the same thing they said before. Anyway, you'll get to see it with your own eyes. It's on every day on YouTube at 6 o'clock Eastern, right? And so that's not true. And then in terms of, did we do it for attention or money, etc.? No, and we knew this because we're professionals. We know the algorithms, right? So no, we knew that it might hurt us, and it did. On the main channel, our views are way down, and so our opponents can celebrate that. Woohoo! Yay, we got them, etc. And so, but you can't say, "Hey, we got them," and they've lost a lot of money here, and they did it for the money. Those two things are not consistent. They just aren't. So pick one, okay? But you can't have both. So there's no extra money at all, and there is no right-wing shift. At the same time, and by the way, let me, and so I'll get to what I think people think are the shift in a second. But in terms of what you said about YouTube favors right-wing content and stuff, it doesn't. In my opinion, it rewards, we know this, like anybody on YouTube knows this, it rewards quote unquote consistency, right? And what consistency means is just give them what they want and don't give them anything else. And what I have a different word for that, is called extremism, right? So our side says, okay, never give an inch, because the algorithm rewards consistency / extremism, right? So we're right about everything, and whatever is the outer edge of the left or the right, and it applies equally to both sides, right? Give them the outer edge, because that's what people want. And if anybody varies from that, attack, right? The others do. And so if you're not perfectly consistent, you'll get hurt. But we took that risk anyway. And so I'll get to what does it mean to not be consistent in what we were doing before in a second. But you see channels that go, yeah, the Democrats are great, they're the greatest thing ever, Donald Trump's the most evil thing, etc., etc. Those are actually now getting massive views, massive. That's actually going for the money. That no nuance, no nothing, I don't care about policy, rah Democrats, no matter how corporate they are, no matter how much they never deliver for you, those folks don't care about policy. They care about, how do I get views and how do I get money, right? So, and look, I'm not hating. Everybody's doing their own thing. And the same is true of the radical right. They've actually been doing it longer, in a sense, on YouTube. That's why it appears that there's all these big shows that are on the right wing, but they're consistently going more and more radical, and their algorithm is rewarding them. So it's rewarding radicalism on both sides. And it's not rewarding any moderation at all. So what is the change that people are talking about? So in the past, as I said earlier, Sabby, I did a lot of yelling at the right wing, right? And so I've done that a billion times. What is different now is something that's an actual realization. It's important to our political strategy. It's important for us in order to win, to actually effectuate these policies. But it's also just true, right? What I realized, especially when I went on the right-wing shows and started interacting with the right-wing more, is this is not the same audience as before. Before, I would get nothing but talking points. Now these guys are giving me 70% talking points, but 30% they're all over the board in a way that I didn't expect and never saw before. So I try to figure out what's going on. Why is this happening? And what I realize is they're not just watching Fox News anymore. They're watching Rogan and Theo Von, even though he's not that political, and Tim Pool, and all these different outlets, right? And all those outlets have slightly different points of view on different topics. Some, for example, are in the old school of right wing. Let's do whatever Israel wants. Let's attack Iran. Let's start more wars. Let's give endless money to Israel. Others are in the camp of, no, I'm not interested in giving any more money to Israel, and I'm definitely not interested in fighting their wars for them. So hence now I'm starting to see, okay, wait, it's the media that's driving their opinions. Whatever media they're watching is what's driving their opinions, which makes sense, right? And now they have more diverse media, and you might disagree with a lot of what's in that media, or certainly the great majority of it, but at least it's a little bit different, right? So what I took away from that is, and there's one other factor, which is the Democratic side, which I'll get to in a second. Oh, wait a minute. These folks, and we partly already knew this, but it really reinforced it for me. These folks, they got lied to. They genuinely believe that Trump is anti-war. They genuinely believe that Trump is populist. It's not like they're thinking, we'll trick the liberals and, we'll pretend to be anti-war, we'll pretend to be for the average American. And then when Trump gets in, we'll serve the rich and we'll start endless wars. Some of them might think that, but I don't think that's a large number. I think a lot of them really believe that Trump was going to do those things, but he's not going to. You and I know he's not going to do those things, right? On war, again, his base might push him in a certain direction. So then I realized it's not the voters' fault. It's the leaders' fault. So then you look at the Democratic side. And so many people believe that Joe Biden was young and dynamic on our side. And they would get really upset if you said that he wasn't and he was in mental decline. They'd get super mad at you, but not just mad at you. They really believed it with all their hearts, that Joe Biden had no mental decline issues at all. He's the best candidate we could have against Trump. Now, is that because they're bad people? No, of course not, right? They got lied to by MSNBC and the others that told them that Biden was young and dynamic, and they believed it. So the conclusion I came away from is don't blame the voters. Attack the powerful, attack the institutions and the elites in the cases that you need to, but don't blame the voters. Try to win over the voters. The voters, and Sabby, there's a reason why things are called a wedge issue, right? Because they try to drive a wedge between us. And why do they do that? They want us fighting on those wedge issues so we don't unite on taxes and war and all these things that the great majority of Americans actually agree with. So that's the sense that people have that we've quote unquote changed, is that sense of I'm not yelling at the Trump voters anymore. I'm yelling at Trump. And I'm telling the Trump voters, remember guys, here's the things we agree on. Here's the things we disagree on. And on the things we agree on, now you're seeing with your own eyes, he's not delivering. Okay. You see what I'm saying?
I understand that. I think that there's a lot of frustration right now. I was just at Harvard Law School, and I can tell you the students are very down. They said the Democratic Party isn't fighting. They said both parties are owned by Wall Street. They said, what's the point when you can just buy elections? Very down, very disappointed. And that brings me to the Democratic Party. I personally, because of the big money interest, I don't believe the Democratic Party can change. I supported Bernie twice, both times. I supported the squad. They let me down tremendously when it came to certain pieces of legislation that they either supported or they should have supported and they did not. I'm very upset with the fact that Bernie Sanders still won't call what's happening in Gaza genocide. I was upset with AOC saying that Kamala Harris is working tirelessly for a ceasefire. There are a number of issues. I know you said you wanted to build a coalition with people on the right that agree with you on certain issues, but I have to ask, it seems like you're not willing to build a coalition with people to your left, right? So I think I'm to your left, meaning that I support some things that I know you don't support. Like I support defunding the police. I know you don't support that, but why not build a coalition with those people? Because what I think, because I don't believe that the Democratic Party is going to change because of the big money interests, I really think we should be using this time to try to build up the Green Party or a third party. Chris Smalls is starting a Labor Party. Chris Smalls is traveling across the country, engaging with people about how we can have a general strike in this country. I think that's where the energy should be going. And I really thought that, especially with the genocide, that more people would see this like, oh my God, both these parties are warmongers. Both these parties are owned. And I want to get your perception about that, because the Democratic Party has let a lot of us down. And I'm curious what you think about building that coalition with people to the left of you and the third party movement?
Yeah. So that's another great question. And I think there's two different issues in there. So one is building coalition with the left, and the other is a third party, right? And so is that the right way to build a coalition, right? So do I want to build a coalition with the left? Of course, I am the left, right? I don't mean I'm exclusively the left. I mean that if you watch our show on any given day, you'll see it's totally on the left, right? And so I know for some that say, nah, it's not enough. It's not enough. You have to agree with me 100%. So, for example, you and I apparently don't agree on the framing of defund the police. I think it's terrible framing. I think police reform is desperately needed, but you're less likely to get police reform if you call it defund the police. So we can get into that debate. But do I want you and I to vote together in an election? Absolutely. Of course. Right. So let's say you had found a great candidate and you guys are pushing it forward and they've got a great chance of winning, et cetera. Am I not going to support that candidate because they want to defund the police or they have some positions I don't agree with? No. I'm going to support the candidate that most agrees with my positions. That's the logical thing to do. So, in fact, I'd be a giant hypocrite if I said, hey, guys, I'm allowed to disagree with you 5 or 10%. And you don't have to, go to war over that. If it didn't apply to me as well, of course it applies to me as well. If I disagree with a candidate that's 5 to 10% more on the left than I am, so what? I'm going to agree with that person a lot more than I agree with the guy on the right who I don't agree with on the issues 90%, right? So, of course, build coalitions on the left. And my God, wherever we are on the left-wing spectrum on policy, when the Democratic primary comes in 2028, we must get on the same team. We cannot pick an establishment Democrat, a corporate Democrat. We can't. And what I'm a little worried about, Sabby, is that some portions of the folks that are, and this is important to clarify before we go further. My audience, we do this great town hall on Operation Hope that we do, and they asked me similar questions, and I answered it. If you're a member on tyt.com, you can see that for yourself. But what we realized in that conversation, what I realized thanks to my audience, is that saying far left, max left, all these different words that I've tried, and every time I said, look, I don't know what to call these folks. It's actually not based on policy. So it's not about whether you're far or et cetera. I'm far left on gun control and on a bunch of issues, right? Probably to the left of you and probably to the left of the great majority of the Democratic voters, right? That's not the right way to think about it. Are you a radical or are you not a radical? What does it mean to be a radical? Radical is purity test. You must agree 100%. If you don't, you get thrown overboard, right? You must hate the other side. If you don't hate the other side, you get thrown overboard. No dissent is allowed. Otherwise, you get thrown overboard. Radical right does purity tests based on race, religion, ethnicity, et cetera, and ideology. The left mainly does it on ideology, which is better because at least you're not doing race and religion, et cetera. But it's still a purity test, and it's still the kind of radicalism that I'm against. I'm against all fundamentalism, religious fundamentalism, and political fundamentalism. That doesn't mean that everyone on the left is politically fundamentalist or radical. Not at all. I think it's a small group. So, but I'm saying don't be radical. I'm saying build the coalitions that are winning coalitions. So I can get to the Green Party in a second, but I thought you wanted to jump in on something.
But okay, so Cenk, you told people to support Kamala Harris, though. She was a corporate candidate. So this is what I'm saying. This is what we saw happen twice. Bernie Sanders was the progressive candidate taking small dollar donations. But when Bernie is not able to get the DNC nomination, we can go into how the Democratic Party cheated Bernie Sanders, I would say twice. The response from most of progressive media was, well, you can't get Trump, so you got to support the nominee. You got to support Biden. You got to support Hillary. So the thing is, the reason why I think some of us left the Democratic Party after this whole, I would call it progressive experiment, is because we saw that continuously happening. Don't support people who take corporate money, but the DNC controls who the nominee is going to be. And they're going to go with someone who's corporate. Then we hear you guys say, well, just support that corporate Democrat. So are you saying going forward, you're not going to do that?
So there's a super important distinction there. Support in the primary or the general election, right? Because in the general election, there was no earthly way that any candidate other than Kamala Harris or Donald Trump was going to win by the time we get to the decision time and we're voting, right? So and I didn't want Donald Trump winning because I thought he might terminate the Constitution and doesn't believe in our form of government. I didn't want that under any circumstances. So then I was left choiceless but to vote for Kamala Harris. So, but in the primaries, no, do not coalesce around corporate candidates. That is a giant trick. It's a propaganda trick by mainstream media. So that's what happened against Bernie in 2016 and 2020. I've been dead set against that. So your point is, why not just go independent? Why not just get rid of these? Can't stand these. If you can't stand these corporate Democrats, I've been fighting these corporate Democrats my whole life, right? So when you tell me about how you go to Harvard and everybody hates money in politics, oh, thank God, finally, thank God, right? And by the way, again, I know some on the left won't believe this, but the thing that the right-wing actual voters now hate the most is money in politics. And you're going to say, well, no, but they love Elon and they love this and that. Yeah, I get it. And Elon set up a giant propaganda machine on X. But whenever I go on any right-wing show and I go, the donor class sucks and they control all of our politicians. AIPAC does, the drug companies do, the oil companies do, etc. All I get is, yep, 100%. Then I say, remember, Elon's a donor. They're like, but okay, I hear you. So at least we planted that thought. But anyway, my point is, we're getting to this wonderful place. But unfortunately, our system is so rigged against third parties that it is just, unless you're a billionaire, it's near impossible to pull off a third-party victory. But what I would tell you, Sabby, is on the other hand, winning a Democratic primary, it's been so frustrating in these last 3 cycles. But is it impossible? It's not even close to impossible. Bernie almost did it twice. And in fact, Bernie could have done it if he was just a little different. He's too nice. If he had actually made an aggressive case against Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden, I think he would have won those primaries. But he just refuses to attack any other Democrat. And as much as I love Bernie, it's so frustrating that he thinks that those corporate Democrats are his colleagues. They're not his colleagues, they're his opponents. And they're his most effective opponents. But look at what Trump did to the Republican Party. He snuck in as a celebrity candidate, said the things that were super popular for that side, by the way, one of which was drain the swamp, anti-corruption. I know he didn't mean any of it, and he never did any of it, right? But that was an effective campaign strategy. So he wins over the Republican primary, and then he bullies the establishment Republicans. Now, in his case, he did it just for himself, right? But if we had a progressive populist candidate that wins a Democratic primary, which is enormously possible in 2028, right? That candidate would get to remake the whole party, so then we don't have to be a billionaire to take over a party. We just do it in the primary. So please stay with me in 2028 and do not vote for. And Sabby, one of the things I'm worried about for folks that don't agree with me on the left is, oh no, culture wars are the most important thing. So if Kamala Harris is a black woman, then that's it. I'm voting for her and I'm voting against the progressive because I'm doing culture wars. No, don't do that. You see what I'm saying?
Well, you're not going to find that on this show. I think we were very critical of that. But I do want to bring up this issue as well. I did speak to a number of Black Americans prior to the election. I did roundtables in person as well. And then, of course, post-election. And I did try to sound the alarm to people that I think a lot of Black Americans are going to stay home. They're going to sit this election out. And I was right. Kamala Harris did lose the Black vote when you compare her numbers to Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden. And of course, nobody has the numbers that Barack Obama has. Significant amount of Black Americans are tired, Cenk. They're tired. And one of the things that has been discussed multiple times on this show was that Black Americans want to know why we are the base of the Democratic Party. They can't win without us. But these candidates don't even support reparations for American descendants of slavery. They are putting every other group before Black Americans. And I really do, from what I heard from the people, I believe that's why a lot of people stayed home, because they're tired. You look at the rallies, the handoff rally that were the anti-Trump rallies that happened all across the country. Not many Black people out there. Like, people are tired. And so what do you say to those people? Because it's just, so much time has gone by, and I can't say, well, they're wrong for saying that no reparations, no vote. I honestly can't say that, because it's well overdue. And some of them want something different. They want a new party that is going to answer to the issues that the Black community is having to deal with. This oligarchy tour right now that AOC and Bernie Sanders are doing, they're not even going to Black communities, Cenk. Why aren't they in Flint, Michigan, Detroit, Baltimore, Jackson, Mississippi? Who are they talking to? And I just continue to see the same pattern like repeat itself. So I'm curious, like your take about that. Do you feel that's something the Democratic Party is not the best on?
So, look, we could agree or disagree on some of the specific issues, and should they campaign on them? Should they not campaign on them? Should they agree with that? Should they not agree with that? But I think the overall point is that Blacks, Latinos, and a lot of our coalition is splintering, disintegrating, etc., because we haven't delivered for them. You could say we didn't deliver for them on reparations. I'm not sure that that's the main driving force, but that's a viable reason why. I think probably a bigger reason why is we didn't deliver for them on wages, we didn't deliver on healthcare, we didn't deliver on jobs, we didn't deliver on so many of the things that we promised them, right? So at some point they go, yeah, but like a great example is we said that if we win those 2 Georgia seats, Ossoff and Warnock, that we were going to do voting rights, right? And the Voting Rights Act was H.R. 1. That was the most important priority for the House. And I said on the Young Turks, they're not going to do it, guys. They're in that bill is like ending gerrymandering. All of their districts are gerrymandered. They love gerrymandering. That's what got them into power, right? And then Clyburn famously gerrymandered South Carolina to help Republicans have an extra seat just so he can keep his seat, right? And super safe. Clyburn is one of the worst corporate Democrats in the country. Can't stand that guy, right? So we've got to actually deliver for these voters. If we don't deliver for them, of course the coalition is going to disintegrate. And who doesn't deliver for them? It's not Bernie and AOC. They're trying their best. And I have my own critique of them, as you do, right? And our critiques might be similar in some ways and different in other ways. But they're at least trying, right? Whereas they're not the problem. They're not the blocking agent. The people that are blocking that change is all the corporate candidates. So, for example, $15 minimum wage. So Biden says we're going to do it. It's easy. It's one of his first priorities. He gets into office. The very first thing he pulls out of the first bill is $15 minimum wage. And so Bernie introduces an amendment, and 8 corporate Democrats voted against it. So why did they vote against higher wages for all those groups? And does that disproportionately affect Blacks and Latinos in this country? Yes, definitely. And that is a material impact in their lives. Do I have more food on the table for my family or don't I? So when those corporate Democrats betray us, that's when the Bernies of the world have to call them out and use their spotlight, use their microphone. To me, that's one of my strategic disagreements with Bernie, which is that he doesn't. He says generally oligarchy, generally Democrats have an issue too, right? But name Chris Coons, say Chris Coons, nope, won't ever do it. Say Joe Biden, won't do it. Say Hillary Clinton, won't do it, right? So you see how we're trying to attack the same problem just from a slightly different angle.
I get that, but I don't know. I try to look at the bigger picture, and when I talk about a movement, I'm not just looking at like electoral politics, right? So it's not just third party. It's organizing. It's all these other pieces to the puzzle that I feel sometimes are overlooked. A lot of these progressive policies have passed on a local level. You live in California. California is a ballot initiative state. So like my state, Massachusetts, ballot initiative, we've passed progressive policies locally, right? But this is why it frustrates me when so many people stay home. They're not even going to vote for that. They're not voting for those ballot measures that will directly impact them in their state. So that's one thing, ballot initiatives. Mutual aid. I do mutual aid. I wish more people were donating money to mutual aid organizations instead of to political candidates. Like we're spending millions of dollars on presidential candidates and we're not taking that money and putting it into communities. We could have built clinics. We could have done so much more for, I think, a lot of the lower income communities. And then there's the protest, right? A couple years ago, we had marches for Medicare for all in the U.S. in over 50 cities in the U.S. And I got to tell you, even back then, it was frustrating because a lot of the large left media wouldn't even allow the organizers to come on to promote it. I didn't understand because Biden was president. I don't know. But I thought we all agreed on Medicare for all. That's another thing. So we need people like you. We need people like you guys are way bigger than us. Okay. So we need people like you. We need people like even like Majority Report, all these people. When these actions take place, we need those channels to promote it. Now, those marches were great, but we could have had more people. And then some people said they didn't know. Cori Bush was the only squad member who came to the March for Medicare for All. She was the only one. All of them were contacted. So they can't just fight when Republicans are in power. They also have to fight when Democrats are in power too. So I want to get your perspective there about organizing, because I feel like I keep hearing people say we have to organize. We did. We organized the marches for Medicare for All. We organized, obviously, the pro-Palestinian protests, which are still happening. And I know you're not a fan of this one, but also Force the Vote. We've been organizing for 10 years, but it's the politicians that are not showing up.
Yeah. Look, Force the Vote was just off by a little bit. It just jumped the gun. It was strategic. I disagreed with it strategically, but not in terms of its goals, right? So, in the same with the marches. I love the marches. I love the goals. I want to take those goals and strategies and turn them into practical wins, so we could actually get these policies that we've been fighting for decade after decade, right? So, look, you say you're small and we're big, and I hear you, but I'm here and I'm doing this because we need the small, the big, the far left and the middle left and the independents, and we need all of it to pass Medicare for all. That is going to be extremely difficult, and we've got to build a very large coalition to do that. So what I want people to do is like support, like your show doesn't agree with my show on a couple of different things that we discuss here. So what? People should subscribe to your show. People should subscribe to the Young Turks. They should subscribe to all these shows and listen to these shows. And and hold them accountable on things like this. So what have the Young Turks done over the last 20 years, right? We're the oldest show in internet history. We're the first YouTubers. And so we built this platform where we featured hundreds of progressive candidates, hundreds of progressive organizations. And then we created dozens and dozens, it might be up to 100 now, of progressive hosts that have gone on to do different things. And so, I mean, if anyone is in favor of building a movement and a strategy to win on these things, it's us at the Young Turks. And so a spectacular example was the Just Democrats. So I was one of the co-founders. We launched it on the Young Turks. Ro Khanna came on and said, yes, as an incumbent, I'll join the group, which was amazing. He did that on the Young Turks. And then we featured this little-known candidate, in fact, not known at all, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. We put her in 34 videos and got her over 1 million views. We raised $2.5 million for Justice Democrats in that first cycle. And that led to these miraculous victories. It's not the only thing that led to it at all, but at least helped, right? And our audience I keep saying they're open-minded and open-hearted, and this is what I'm talking about. To give that amount of money to these folks, and the result was that AOC victory was one of the most stunning political upsets in American history, literally, right? And so we all did that together. Now, you've got some frustrations with the squad and Just Democrats, and so do I. So that, we parted ways with that organization. But I don't hate them. I let them keep going. Let them do what they do, and hopefully they'll join up in the right place with us. And I wish that they had challenged the corporate Democrats more, and that's what we set up the organization to do. And by the way, Sabby, very soon, I'm going to launch a new effort, and that effort is going to be a similar theme, which is, in this case, we're calling it a populist takeover of the Democratic Party, so that they finally do all the things that we're talking about here. Deliver for the average person, higher wages, better health care, end the wars, get money out of politics. So probably my biggest frustration with the Just Democrats in the past was the number one issue is corruption, money in politics. You all should have focused on that like a laser beam. Instead, they didn't focus on it at all. Why? Because it would offend their beloved colleagues. So this new group is going to have an attitude of, no, we're doing a takeover. And yes, that will offend some of your colleagues. We've got to win the Democratic Party back to what it's supposed to be, serving the average person.
So this is so similar to Justice Democrats.
Yeah, this will be a new effort similar to Justice Democrats. But this time, I think the Democratic Party is ready for it. So last time we won some spectacular victories, but we couldn't take over the whole party with Bernie or any other of our, side progressive candidates winning. But this time, I think a progressive populist candidate can win the 2028 primary. But what we got to show you, like we did last time, is can we get electoral victories in 2026? Can we win in red districts, purple districts, blue districts? Can we win everywhere? And that gives you the leverage to be able to win at the presidential level and take over the party and bring it back to the party of FDR.
So this is the type of candidate that I'm looking for. My producer launched 11 demands for real democracy, fix big money in politics and government, healthcare for all, a minimum standard of living for everyone, end the wars, respond to the climate emergency, racial and criminal justice reform that also includes reparations for ADOS, reject censorship, immigration reform, an election system we can trust, which includes ranked choice voting, revamp taxation and funding, and last but not least, democratize the enterprise. This is something I think, like when I talk about building a movement, I just don't want people to feel like their only option is electoral politics, right? And I know the majority of Americans don't vote, and people are just like, I'm done with all of this. What do I do? I feel like it has to be fought on two different fronts, right? Like I feel like some people are going to feel like their fight is going to the ballot box, but we got to give something to those other people who feel like that ship has sailed and they want something else to do. And I feel like that's where the movement on the outside comes in. But when we have those movements, these politicians, like the squad members, when we contact their offices, as we did before in the past, they got to participate. Like it just, like these things will be elevated, enormously. Like the pro-Palestinian marches, all of them should have been out there. Like this was a no-brainer to me. I don't understand. Medicare for all, they all should have been out there. Like it can't just always be Bernie Sanders. Just like I said, for the Green Party, it can't always be Jill Stein. And now you see Butch Ware is kind of, taking up those reins there. But I think this has been like a interesting conversation. But I think we both agree that something does need to change. I think we just may have disagreements about how we need to go about it.
And by the way, that's beautiful. There's nothing wrong with that, right? So what I say to folks who disagree with us is great, wonderful, build something, right? And that's the point you're making. Build a movement, and whether it's electoral or non-electoral, set up something that you love and rally people around that cause. And one of us is going to have the right idea and is going to be able to build a winning coalition. And that's what we need. We need all of us to be fighting really hard. So as I look at that list, it looks pretty good. I mean, obviously you ran right through it, right? And I didn't get a chance to look at all the specifics. But whether I agree or disagree with every single thing on that list is not important, to me at least. And I hope it's not important to you. Like, generally, you got to be along those lines, but do not eliminate people because they didn't agree with 3 things on a list of like 40 things, policy priorities, right? That's what I would ask of people. So we could build that coalition. Otherwise, we're going to have tiny, tiny coalitions of people who agree 100% on everything. That's just too small, right? We need to broaden it, etc. But broadening it doesn't mean, we broaden it to the point where they don't do anything. No. The point is to actually pass the bills, because that's the only thing that affects your lives, right? You're the voters' lives, the viewers' lives, etc. So that's what we're trying to build. And look, your frustration about those politicians, I'll leave you with this. There's a virus in the air in Washington. Okay, it's a mind virus. And once they get in there, they really, they get so offended when I say this, but I got to say it, I got to be honest. They then begin to feel subconsciously, not consciously, they're good people, but they start to feel what's in the air, which is we're the elites. And the elites don't talk to non-elites. Why would they talk to someone organizing a Medicare for All rally? Why would they talk to Sabby? Why would they even talk to us? They don't even talk to us. Our network is freaking gigantic, right? It's that Media Matters chart came out. We're about 1/3 of the entire left-wing online media, right? TYT as a network. And they won't deign to come on our show because we've disagreed with them strategically from time to time. Well, I mean, I apply the same standard to them that I do to my friends in the radical left. Somebody's got to be able to disagree with you 5 to 10%, and you still come on their show, for God's sake, right? You still have the same policies and stuff. But they get to Washington, and they forget about the rest of us. And it's super frustrating. And so I share that frustration with you. But hey, as Bernie says, the struggle continues. So we all go, well, let's all fight in the right direction. And please, for God's sake, fight towards our shared goals, right? But if you don't want to, and you just want to attack Sabby or me or some other guy on the left or person, well, what am I going to do? It's a free country. So, but if you can, subscribe to Sabby, subscribe to the Young Turks, watch us whenever our VODs, our live show, 6 o'clock, etc., and keep the conversation going. Also within the left.
Cenk Uygur, thank you so much.
Really appreciate you.
Okay, so that was the conversation there, ladies and gentlemen. Again, like, I was kind of surprised. I was expecting him to yell. I was expecting a lot of yelling. But I think it's very clear. And I had to have that conversation because we need to reach more people. And I'm going to tell you guys why. You're going to see when we get to the AOC story. The reality is this, folks. I see people buying into this again. I've already heard people, and you guys have got to hear this. I already heard people say that if AOC runs in 2028, which it looks like it's heading in that direction, that they're going to vote for her, that's who they would support. She already raised a lot of money. I'll get to the story in a sec, but she already raised a lot of money. You don't raise that kind of money when you're in a safe district. You raise millions of dollars like that if you're considering pursuing some type of a presidential run. And I'll get into that more. But the reality is, folks, look, we already know what the DNC is going to do. We already know that the DNC is not going to allow her to be the nominee. And once again, millions of dollars would have gone to a candidate instead of going to mutual aid, instead of going to organizing, instead of going into communities that need that money and can have it directly. That's the problem with all of this. That's the problem that I have. And then we'll get into some specifics as well about AOC as well, because I don't trust her, and I don't think you should either. So hopefully that does reach more people. Maybe there are some people out there that watch TYT that kind of been questioning things, maybe kind of feel a little bit like, I don't know if this is really working out, like the way we've been doing things. Maybe they've been feeling that way and didn't know if like other people are feeling that way too. They need to know there's other things that you can do. Rome, I think, has inspired a lot of people. Had it not been for Rome, my comrade at Revolutionary Blackout Network, Rome got a lot of people into mutual aid. Do you guys realize that? Do you guys realize how many people have reached out to me and to Rome and have told him that he inspired them to start doing mutual aid? This is what I'm talking about. This is the direction, like, I feel like we putting all this money into electoral politics instead of putting that money directly into the communities that are impacted. So something has to change. Let's get to some of the comments, and then we're going to go to the next story. Lana said, I predict Cenk going to yell and get all red. I thought he was going to yell too. Thank you, JB. Good evening, all. What's up, my comrade JB? Shout out to Charles L. Thompson Jr. for becoming a Sabby member. Give Charles a big whoop, whoop. Thank you, Saz. Love you, Sabby. Wish you would debate Vaush or Hassanabi. I bet you'd convert so many of their audience to RBN and your show. Shout out to Vietnam, who just gifted 1 Sabby membership. Thank you, Charlie Mack, for the fire and love. Thank you, Chris. $5 for doing the damn thing. Hope everyone has a great night. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Simply Anthony Good, for the super sticker. Peter says, can we get Judge Joe Brown on the show to talk about the Carmelo case? Okay. I don't think he can come back on because it's a whole thing to this. Like, it's a tax thing. Like, it's, and then 2, the last time Judge Joe Brown was here, I think he offended a lot of people. Like he offended a lot of people, but also because of the tax issue, New York says, so glad y'all did this. Jimmy says, MAGA populist right is awful on immigration, but great on war and peace. I don't know. I haven't seen the great on war and peace part, like I said, after October 7th. Thank you, Allah Bissy. In agreement with Eric T. Red assertion that if you Americans that love peace had voted for the only credible candidate at the last election, Jill Stein, she could have won. Yeah, I know. I said that too. Epic says, I think Cenk is missing the point. By working with these people known for being bigoted, despite this one subject of agreement, it's giving them a level of approval and legitimacy. Thank you, P. Smith, who's been a member for 19 months. I'm 70 today. This boomer loves your show. You're brilliant, and I'm learning a lot from you. Well, happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Thank you, Marlon. Solution. Don't vote for anyone who even smells like APAC money. Thank you, Willie. Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian owes the Jimmy Dore, Gray Zone, Glenn Greenwald left an apology. TYT is the new Dave Rubin. Thank you, Mark. 10 to 15%, he says, not me. I'm 77 light years to his left. Thank you, Justin. Cenk, we can't waste our time and money chasing another Dem Party primary grift. For an electoral strategy, it's time to make a hard pivot to grow the Green Party. And thank you, Janice. We can't pick any Democrat. The party is irredeemable, grassroots funded, third party only. The Bernie progressives can either vote with us or lose. Thanks, Mark. Cenk is the Erdogan of media. Thanks, Marcus. Oh, we totally want what the left wants. We just use more moderate words. POS has never listened to actual leftists. Thanks, Janice. Bernie plays his assigned role, always has. Thanks, Justin. Cenk, we wasted a lot of money on venue in 2016. We could have donated $1 million more to Bernie and the Dems still would have cheated. If all the people who supported Bernie went green, we'd be a huge threat. Justin is right about this, Like it just, I don't know, man. Thank you for the super sticker, Gregory. Thanks, Justin. Let's hear from Cenk, who he's supporting in California primary for governor. Butch Ware is where it's at. Thank you, Marlon. Bernie Sanders is the ultimate third party gate guard. His job is to derail the movement. There you go. Marlon's been a member for 2 months. Thank you. Where's the love? Democratic Party is making it loud and clear that it wants a divorce from Black America. Too many of us are in denial. It is a sobering reality. Thanks, Janice. So faster with force the vote strategically, while Gates proved it works. He's wrong. He's been proven wrong and still gaslighting. Don't fall for it. Thank you, Joseph. Cenk wants to possess a rotting corpse. Interesting. Thank you, Tim. A new effort to funnel people back to the Democratic Party. Man, bye. Thanks, Jules. You can't take over the Democratic Party, Cenk. It takes you over. And thank you, Leroy. I think I got everyone there. Hope Cenk will extend the olive branch for you to come on his show. People need to hear the RBN perspectives. Shout out to Leroy, who's been a member for 43 months. Leroy been with me for a long time. Okay. I think we have a comment on Rockfin, and then we'll go to the next story. All right. Thank you so much for the tip on Rockfin, DB Cooper III. Whoop, whoop. Thank you. And we are getting into this next story. Again, the theme tonight is the reality. All hell broke loose the other night. So apparently, Marjorie Taylor Greene had a town hall, and her constituents, I guess this is their first opportunity this year to confront her about some of the policies, legislation, et cetera. And shit hit the fan. And you guys are going to see that. Like, I have seen them, take protesters out of these meetings before, but this is wild. They tased a man. Like, this is crazy. Now, people have a right to be upset with their representatives. And honestly, this is what you do. Like, when you are not happy with the way that they're handling legislation, you're not happy with their votes, they do have these town halls, or at least most of them do, and you can attend them and hopefully voice your concern. But things got out of control here. before she even started to speak. Check this out.
Everybody's really excited.
Enjoyed all of it. I feel blessed to have y'all in the district.
Good. God bless you.
Thank you. Can I take this off? Oh, this is wired. Okay. Well, welcome everyone.
So look over here in the right-hand bottom corner. They're dragging this guy. Now, again, she wasn't even speaking yet, so I don't know what he did. Is this necessary? Is this necessary? So see how cops can do this to a constituent, someone just chilling in the audience. Again, I don't know what he said that drove them to react this way, but this is ridiculous.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you to our great police officers. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my town hall. This is a town hall. This is not a political rally. This is not a protest. If you stand up and want to protest, if you want to shout and chant, we will have you removed just like that man was thrown out. We will not tolerate it. This is, let me tell you, this is funded. The Democrats have been rioting. They are the party of violence. They are the party that... They are the party of violence. They are the party that... Get out. Go. Go.
It was kind of funny because she said the Democratic Party is the party of violence, but they literally just dragged this man like out of his seat and put him on the ground. Watch.
If you want to sit and listen, you're welcome to listen. Everyone across the aisle. If you want to sit and listen, you're welcome to listen. Everyone across the aisle. Democrats, independents, Republicans. This is a good place. You have a lot to learn.
Okay, that's just a tidbit there, ladies and gentlemen, but things get even crazier. I want to go to this next clip here. I think you guys are also going to find this interesting. It was her again. There was another woman that stood up to approach or confront Marjorie Taylor Greene. And then you're also going to see another senator here who was also approached. Like, look, people are pissed. I'm trying to tell you guys, people are not happy. Are not happy. I've heard it everywhere, whether it's the students, whether it's, random people, if people at the gym, like I hear it everywhere. People are pissed. And so what we're seeing is the same thing that was happening under Biden. While Biden and Democrat politicians were getting confronted, now we see this happening to Republican politicians under Donald Trump. Let's get into it, folks.
It was a night of hot tempers and heightened emotions here in the U.S. That's where town hall events hosted by Washington lawmakers put them face to face with the voters they represent. Republican Senator Chuck Grassley fielded questions in Iowa about a man from Maine mistakenly deported to El Salvador.
Are you going to bring that guy back from El Salvador? Yeah. Why not?
Well, because that's not a power of Congress.
So this is Senator Grassley. He's also Republican, and this is his constituent here. They are talking about, I think the commentator said Maine. It's Maryland. Remember the guy we talked about that was deported from Maryland and he was sent to the prison in El Salvador. But even the Trump administration said that that was a mistake. He should have not been. And now they're saying, oh, we can't bring him back, even though SCOTUS said you have to bring him back. So as I say again, yes, they can bring him back. That is a lie. The U.S. government is paying Bukele millions of dollars to house people in that prison in El Salvador. If they want to bring him back, they can. So people have to understand that. Now we see these senators being confronted by their constituents like, what are you doing? So Senator Grassley says, well, because that's not power of Congress. Listen.
Supreme Court said to bring him back.
We would like to know what you, as the people, the Congress, who are supposed to rein in this dictator, what are you going to do about it? These people have been sentenced to life imprisonment in a foreign country with no due process. Our government cannot do anything.
You know you got problems when, these peeps are pissed.
Now, Grassley is known for visiting all 99 counties in Iowa every year and says that his office has received more emails so far in 2025 than all of last year. Voters questioned his support of President Donald Trump and apparently weren't happy with the response.
If you're proud of voting for Trump and what he's doing in office, are you proud of everything he's doing right now?
There's no president that I've agreed with 100%.
I didn't say that.
Meanwhile, in Georgia, a town hall hosted by Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene turned violent after an altercation between a police officer and an attendee. Here's what CNN's crew saw.
They tased the man. They tased this guy. Again, is this necessary? No, it's not. No, it's not. We are seeing again an increase in the police state. I warned you guys, cop cities was just the beginning. And now you see more of this. I mean, you can't speak out at these town halls or you get tased.
So what you're watching there is CNN crews witnessing police use a stun gun on at least two men after they refused to leave the event. So both men and another woman were arrested. Police say that officers used force that was, quote, necessary to gain compliance and control the situation. At least 11 more town hall are set to happen across the country tonight. Reed Binia now has more details on what lawmakers hope to accomplish on Tuesday.
Tempers flared as Washington lawmakers faced constituents at town halls on Tuesday. Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene was interrupted several times by protesters at her town hall in Georgia, with police forcibly removing people from the event, arresting 3 individuals and using stun guns in 2 instances. Greene dismissed the interruptions and moved on.
Thank you to our great police officers.
She displayed some critical constituent questions about the Trump administration on a projector, reading them out loud, and responding in at least one case by pushing back.
Unfortunately, you're being brainwashed by the news that you're watching. A lot of Democrats pride themselves on being educated, and I suggest they educate themselves better.
In Iowa, Republican Senator Chuck Grassley took a different tack, mostly listening to concerns about the Trump administration.
I'm trying to recapture the constitutional authority of Article 1, Section 8, one of the 18 powers of Congress.
Democrats also faced pressure from constituents Tuesday, listening to criticism that they're not fighting hard enough to combat Trump and Republicans.
I hear the criticism that we're not doing enough. I'm never going to lie to somebody as a politician. I can't do things in the minority that I think people wish I could do. So I'm doing what I can do.
I'm Reed Binia.
Let me pause here for a second because I've been hearing this on both sides, right? So as you guys can see, like people are there's people pissed on both sides of the aisle. I want to make this very clear. When people say there's nothing that they can't do, right? So we do realize that you're not the majority in the House. You're not the majority in the Senate, but you can be the majority in these damn streets. Because that's the thing. And I think some of these people who are upset, I mean, I have friends that had contacted me privately and said they're very upset that the Democratic Party is just like, oh, well, this is just how it is for the next 4 years. And they even said that, like, they're not protesting, they're not doing anything. Like, I think if they even did that, maybe some people would say, well, at least they're trying there or whatever. But the reality is, what people got to understand is that both of these parties are fine with the status quo. And that's how we got a Donald Trump in the first damn place. That's how we got here, trying to protect and save that status quo. They would have rather had Donald Trump win than Bernie Sanders win in 2016. I mean, it's just a reality. They want to protect that and keep that. Why do you guys think, you keep hearing them say, we got to keep things in the center? Because they don't really want to give us anything. They don't really want to do anything for the working class. Damn sure don't want to do anything for poor people. They don't even go to poor neighborhoods to get your vote. And there is a study out of Princeton, the Gillen study. This study shows that when it comes to voting and electoral politics in particular, that people who are lower income, their vote does not have an impact on their life in the sense that it doesn't really change or improve their life. However, for wealthy people, it does. What does that tell you? Let's go on a little bit more here.
Reporting.
Town halls gone wild, complete with scrums and stun guns. That was the scene at an event for Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene in suburban Atlanta. Police arrested 3 people. They did use stun guns on 2 of them. Now, Greene did not take questions face to face. Instead, questions had to be submitted in writing, and she mocked anything that was critical. Protesters interrupted her several times.
And that's why people interrupt. So you got to understand that when you go to these events, yes, they're like, your questions have to be submitted beforehand, but they only pick certain questions. They're not going to pick the ones that is going to make them look bad for the most part, right? So people stand up to say what they want to say because you're skipping over their questions. You don't want to be held accountable. That's why people do that. I don't know if they showed the part with the other woman yet. Oh, she's coming up.
Ladies and gentlemen, they're all inside the interior of the United States.
How about the KKK?
All inside the interior of the United States.
This is the terrorist group going after black and brown.
You can head out. The protest is outside. Thank you very much. Protest is outside.
You once money bigot. You once money bigot.
Protest is outside. Bye. Have fun out there.
What that woman said is, what about the KKK, right? Notice how the government is willing to bend over backwards and make all these different policies with the universities, media, etc., for anti-Semitism. Notice how Congress tried to rush and pass that legislation to change the definition of it, of what anti-Semitism means. Notice how they're calling these pro-Palestinian kids, they're like, oh, they're terrorists or they're gang related. Pay attention to the words, the vocabulary that is being used. But you have a whole damn organization in this country called the KKK. You have neo-Nazis right here in this damn country, and you don't see them call them terrorists or gang related. You don't see any of that. They do it because they're bought, because they belong to AIPAC and also Kufi. It's not just AIPAC, it's also Kufi. They belong to these lobby interest groups. I mean, ain't no way in hell. They are really trying their damnedest, because the majority of Americans, new poll shows that they do not support Israel the way that we used to, right? So they're trying their damnedest to convince you that these are the people who are more oppressed. Imagine sitting down and saying this to a black person. Difficult, right? So they get black politicians to do it for them. That's where Cory Booker comes in. All part of the plan.
All right, let's get ready to see. And it's Eva McCann who's been covering these town halls across the country. Eva.
John, it was true to form for the far-right ally of President Trump as she sparred with her own constituents. She pushed back on tough questions, accused Georgians of being brainwashed. Now, it was clear Green relished this. Republican leadership has advised against holding these types of town halls to avoid these episodes. But what we saw last night was Green very much looking for a fight. Listen to how she responded to a constituent concern about cuts to the federal government.
Doge gutting our government with a chainsaw approach and the utter destruction and ignoring of our Constitution and rule of law. He is not well physically or mentally. Poor Christina. Poor Christina. Well, I'm sure, Christina, you think that you're pretty smart. But the reality is you are being completely brainwashed by whatever source of news you listen to.
So you could see the Congresswoman reading there because she decided to do it that way and not actually answer questions in real time. Now, in at least 2 instances, our crew on the ground witnessed officers using stun guns after scrums with male attendees as they tried to remove them from the building. Meanwhile, a town hall with Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley.
And we got into that part about Grassley already as well. So as you guys can see, again, just not wanting to be held accountable. And again, here's the reality when it comes down to it, folks. These politicians, they want to vote on legislation, but they don't want to be held accountable for their vote. As their constituents, you have the right. You have the right to do that. You have the right to confront your representative. And look, here's another reality, right? Like Grassley, for example, and I know, Dana, I believe you said it here in the chat. He's a perfect example, or maybe it's gone. I thought it was there. I think he's one of the oldest senator or something like that. So he's very comfortable. And he's not going to try to rock the boat in any way, shape, or form. If you ask me, all these people got to go. All of them got to go. All of them. They all got to go. You need like an entire new Congress because they've all been corrupted in some way, shape, or form. But you can't run and hide. So what do? They get the police, sick the cops on you so they don't have to answer you. They don't have to pay attention to you. But people are mad, and people are mad on both sides. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Black Noise. Am I mistaken, or did Cenk praise Jim Clyburn on your platform? Last time I checked, Clyburn told Marcel Dixon no to reparations to his face, so Jim's the last one to uplift for FBA ADOS. No, I think he was trying to criticize Jim Clyburn. But thank you. But you're right. I do remember him saying that to Marcel Dixon. Thank you. Where's the love? That's elder abuse. Shout out to Jay for the super sticker. And thank you, Navo. That's why the police can keep doing that to people, because you got enough people that keep supporting them when they bully people. Yeah, like the audience cheering it on. Thank you, baby Ethernet. We're next. This doesn't end with Palestinians. Oh, thank you, Crush. Please explain what you meant when you said China is exploiting Africa by buying Nigerian leather. I think I talked about that last stream. Yeah, I talked about that last stream. Check out that video. Luigi says, peep how that news clip only shows the black man being dragged and tased over and over again. I noticed that. Thank you, baby Ethernet. IDF high-tech surveillance is first tested in Palestine. There you go. All right, guys, if you haven't done so, smash that like button. Thank you. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share like a Care Bear. And we're moving on to a story that I think if you're a millennial or a Gen Z, it might mean something to you. Actually, if you're not, it still might mean something to you, but we're going to get into it. Check this out. Shout out to friend of the show, Roger Meadows, for sending me this. Why are millennials and Gen Z so burned out? Man's theory goes viral. Let's get into this a little bit. I'm a millennial. I'm an older millennial. We've been through a lot. 08 housing crisis, pandemic, right? A lot has happened. Gen Z, the pandemic, a lot of things. The cost of living has continued to increase, and wages, in my opinion, have not adjusted for inflation. If wages adjusted for inflation, we wouldn't have a minimum wage that's like $7.25 an hour, right? So I think at this point, the minimum wage should be at least in the 20s. I think I have an article on that I'll show you in just a second. But I want you to hear what this guy had to say, and you guys can tell me how you feel about this. We often hear that millennials and Gen Z are lazy and entitled, but one man insists that isn't the truth. And actually, most of them are just burned out. As a millennial, people born between 1981 and 1996, Freddie Smith, 37, can relate to the struggles that many people in his generation face. He is tired of hearing the criticism that young people don't want to put in the hard work, or that they use burnout as an excuse. I gotta agree with dude here, right? I gotta agree with them. So let's get into this video that went so viral. I want to make sure we got the video here. 1 second, guys, because I think it's one of those videos that's in the article, but it's like, let me take this down a little bit. Let's try this again. Okay, there we go. That's the other video. I don't know why the video doesn't show up now. It was here. You guys got to hear this though. So if I have to show, which I hope I don't have to show the YouTube one, because I want you to hear this. Oh, I don't know if Eric and Corey, did you see the video on the article? Because it was there. If not, I can just get it from. Oh, here we go. Let's see. I'm trying to get the volume here. Eric, can you help with this? These TikTok videos on here, you know how they get.
Where people think, oh, these kids are so burned out, they're just lazy. It's like, no, they're working 40 hours. Where people think, oh, these kids are so burned out, they're just lazy. It's like, no, they're working 40 hours a week, but at the end of the month, they have nothing to show for it. So if you're not making any progress and you look back 5 years and go, damn, I made $300,000 in the last 5 years, or I made $400,000 in the last 5 years, and I have nothing. If anything, I have $25,000 in debt. That's going to create burnout because you feel like you just put in 5 years of work.
Oh, yeah, that doesn't work. Eric, can you help with this video? Thank you. Yeah, sorry, guys. Sometimes the TikTok videos, like that video was in the article. And for whatever reason, when I put the link here, all of a sudden that video is not there. This is not the video. I can't. It's this one. I hate the way TikTok does this.
People
Okay,
think,
that's
these
the
kids
video.
are so burned out, they're just lazy. It's like, no, they're working 40 hours a week, but at the end of the month, they have nothing to show for it. So if you're not making any progress and you look back 5 years and go, damn, I made $300,000 in the last 5 years, or I made $400,000 in the last 5 years, and I have nothing. If anything, I have $25,000 in debt. That's going to create burnout because you feel like you just put in 5 years of work and have nothing to show for it. And we still have people blaming them that, well, the reason you're broke is because of the coffee. It's like, no, it's the 25% inflation that we've faced that just destroyed people's spending power. It's the 30% increase in rent prices where people are spending 40% of their money on rent. You're still being taxed 20, 25, 30%. People just don't have any money. People aren't having kids. They're not being able to start families. People are struggling financially, fighting financially. Relationships are suffering. This is all decline in living standards. You realize millennials with degrees are living with roommates into their 30s, not having kids? How do you have a Thanksgiving in a 900 square foot apartment? How do you have a dog and go play in the backyard and make memories with your kids? I was living in an apartment complex just 2.5 years ago. Tons of kids. They may do, but they're all playing on the cement floors in the hallway because they don't have a yard. because houses are $400,000. Humans are good at adapting, but there's a fine line between adapting and being taken advantage of. And I think we're being taken advantage of. People think, oh, these kids are so burned out, they're just lazy. It's like, no, they're working 40 hours a week, but at the end of the month, they have nothing to show for it.
So I think that part there is very important, right? So he said these kids are working like 40 something hours a week, but at the end of the month, they have nothing to show for it. I think that's a big part of the problem, right? So we have inflation, we have higher prices. Also, based on some of the salaries that I've seen that some of these undergraduates are being paid when they graduate from college, I would say they're being underpaid if we were to compare them to where their parents were at that point in time. Again, because wages have not adjusted for inflation. So that's a big part of it. Another thing I'm going to show you too, rent and housing prices is through the roof. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I just want to show you what you're dealing with here. The other thing that he brings up here is savings. And this one works just well. Thank goodness. This is a Twitter video. He talks about, remember when people would save money? Listen to this.
This is incredible. So this word has been trending and I had to look it up and it blew my mind. Millennials and Gen Z, you're not going to believe what this is. So apparently back in the day, there was something called a savings or a savings account, which essentially was like a second checking account. So, every 2 weeks you get a direct deposit from your paycheck. And as soon as the money hits the account, it's gone to bills. Well, back in the day, there was money left over. Like after the bills, there was money left over and they had to put it somewhere. So they put it in a savings account.
I can testify to this because my parents had this thing, right? Like, so my dad, this is how he taught me how to do things. But I remember my dad, like they used to sit down at the table and they used to do the bills. So like I said, I'm an older millennial, guys, come back with me. But they used to sit down at the table and like my dad and my mom, like they would do the bills. My dad had like his checkbook and all that kind of stuff. And my dad like used to allocate money in a certain way. Like this is the money for bills. This is the money for groceries. This is the money for miscellaneous. Like we wanted to go to the movies or something like that. And then the rest he would put in savings. Here's the problem, folks. A lot of people that are millennials and Gen Z don't have anything left over to put in savings. That's a big part of the problem. So when we say they're experiencing burnout, it's like, yeah, they're working all these hours, but the pay is so little, but the rent is so damn high. Let them finish here.
And not just once, every single month, they would put money into a savings account so they could have it for security or an emergency, for retirement. Some of them would take vacations with it, and they would use this account for a down payment on a house.
Yep.
So this is like a new concept to us, but we got to bring this thing back, because if we could figure out how to have a savings account and be able to travel, set up for retirement, invest, buy a house, we're going to be smooth sailing. So thank you for bringing this to my attention. If you don't believe me, you got to look it up. I promise I'm not lying. It's called a savings account.
Interesting the way that he says it, right? It's called a savings account. It's kind of funny, but it's true because like a lot of times people don't have money left over to put it into the savings account. Now it is important. I mean, the way my dad always explained it to me is like, you got to have money saved for a rainy day. What I'm trying to get across to all of you tonight is that the Gen Z and a lot of the millennial kids, I guess adults, they don't have it. They don't have it. And I want to show you why. So we're going to look at these prices. Okay. We'll look at the minimum wage. This is what it really should be, right? So raising the minimum wage, despite 2/3 of Americans supporting raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour, it has stood at $7.25 an hour since July 2009. Now, peep this, fam. In fact, had the federal minimum wage kept pace with workers' productivity since 1968, the inflation-adjusted minimum wage should be $24 an hour. So, what I want people to realize, it's not that these kids, these groups are working less. Oftentimes they're working more hours, but they're not getting the wages that they need to even have a savings account or even, just be able to put a down payment on a home. That's the problem. And rent continues to increase. So most of your paycheck goes to rent. Most of it. He mentioned people in their 30s, like having roommates. I know people in their 40s that still have roommates because they can't afford it. It's just too much. This is a problem that's happening all across the country. It used to just be a New York thing and a San Francisco thing, you know, but now it's spread. And part of the reason is because, and they continue to say we have a shortage of housing. I don't buy that. Okay. We don't have a shortage of housing. What we have are these businesses. We have private equity that has bought a lot of these housing properties, these apartment complex, and the private equity companies, they buy it. And that's part of the reason why the rent increases the way that it does. Greystar is one of those companies, in case you were wondering. They're pretty popular. And one of my demands that I've always had is that we have to stop private equity from owning housing. We have to stop it. That's one part of the problem. So to his point, if you're not making enough money to have a savings account, then you're not making enough money to put a down payment on a home. But let's say you were. Let me show you what you would be working with. We're going to look at, this is Canton, Massachusetts. Okay. Canton, Massachusetts. It's south of Boston. So it's not in the city, but it's south of Boston. It used to be pretty affordable from what I remember. Take a look at what a single family home costs right now in Canton, Massachusetts, right? So look at this. This right here, just go to the list. This one here, for example, this is 1 bedroom, 1 bath, $289,000. That's not a home. That would be a condo. 2 bedroom, again, condo, $525,000 in Canton, Massachusetts. This isn't even like a hip place to be. I'm not trying to be mean, but it's true. We're talking about Canton. It's not like this is a place that has like a top 10 school district. No. 2 bedroom condo over $500,000. This shit is not normal and it's not sustainable. And I've been trying to get this message across to people. That's insane. I'm not even going to show you Boston because I think you can, figure that out. $395,000 for a 2 bedroom condo in Stoughton, Massachusetts. If you just scroll down, you see this. This is absolutely freaking ridiculous. This house right here to the left, which isn't even a giant house, is over $1.2 million. It's 3-bedroom home. A 3-bedroom home. Somebody explained to me, when did we get to a point in this country where a 3-bedroom house costs $1.2 million? I'll wait. Because when I was growing up, it wasn't that way. We'll go on a little bit more here. This is insane. Another one, 3-bedroom house in Canton, Massachusetts, $745,000. Are you shitting me? 4-bedroom house, $899,000. And to be honest with you guys, this is standard across the board. So when people ask, why aren't these kids buying homes? You see the prices? Now, to be fair, let's go south, because I lived in the South as well. Let's go south to Raleigh, North Carolina. I lived in North Carolina. Let's check this out. I want to show you something with Raleigh too. Somebody got to make this make sense to me. Why in the hell is this 4-bedroom home in Raleigh, North Carolina over $999,000? North Carolina used to be more affordable. Then they have the nerve to have a 2-bedroom home for $620,000. You can't even get 3 bedrooms. Like this is insane. This is North Carolina. 3-bedroom here, and this is a small one, and it's not updated. $480,000, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, right? And if you look at the pictures here, it's outdated, right? The carpet is old. The staircase is old. And if you're asking how I know these things, it's because, listen, when I watched a lot of HGTV growing up for years. So I can tell if the fixtures are outdated, all this kind of jazz. I mean, if you just look at the pictures here, is this ridiculous? So this is considered a Cape Cod style home, right? And I'm not saying it's a bad house, But what I'm saying is this type of home didn't used to cost this much in North Carolina. There was a time when you didn't have to make, this amount of money to be afforded. People can't afford this shit. The people who can afford it are the people who already had savings, already had wealth, or maybe someone who already owned a home and they sold that home. And then they're like, okay, we're going to move to North Carolina and we're going to buy this house. The point is the homes are overpriced. My parents, we had a 3-bedroom home, right? When we moved back to the States in North Carolina, we had a 3-bedroom home. That house was like $70,000. Backyard, big front yard. I'm not kidding. You see what they're charging. This is absolutely ridiculous. This is why the kids can't get it. This is why people aren't buying these homes. And I don't care what the hell. There's no way on earth, if you have a 3-bedroom home, this is ridiculous. And then, of course, I expect the larger homes to be expensive, right? I expect that. But we're talking about $345,000 for a townhouse in Raleigh, North Carolina that used to be $80,000. What is happening? $1.1 million, $475,000 for a 3-bedroom house in North Carolina. So one of the things that I told you guys before is that the solution is not to tell people just move to a different state. Part of the reason why homes are more expensive in North Carolina now is because people did just that, right? There was an influx of people that moved from places like New York, Massachusetts, and moved down south to North Carolina. They're like, whoa, homes are so much cheaper here. I'll just buy a house here. And that has continued over the years. You see that happening in places like Nashville, Tennessee as well. Fastest growing city in the East. Everything's getting more and more expensive. So I'm saying this. Here's the reality, folks. Don't go so hard on the Gen Z and millennial peeps, right? Just take a look at what's going on economically. Take a look around. Look at these damn prices. And those are the homes. Look at the rental prices. And give them a little bit of grace. Let's go to some of the comments here. Ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Tim, though. I saw a college professor living in his car, Sabby, sad. There was an article about a Northeastern University professor who was adjunct, who was living in their car. It was a couple years ago. I remember that. Thank you, Marvin. IDF helped / learned from apartheid South Africa. Maxine said rent keeps going up, but the paycheck doesn't. There you go. And thank you, Joseph. Every day it rains. Noah ain't got nothing on us. Yeah, just let's have a little bit more grace for like the millennials and the Gen Z peeps. Is that okay? Can we do that? Thank you. We're not going to have grace for this article, though. This story here is interesting. A New York Times article, and it's kind of making the rounds. There are things that they don't mention in this article that I do have to address. So you probably heard it by now. If you didn't, check this out. At Black colleges, a stubborn gender enrollment gap keeps growing. Only 19% of students at Howard University are Black men whose enrollment levels at four-year colleges have plummeted across the board. So I want to start out by saying this before we get into the piece. It's actually not just Black men. It's men. It's all men. But the numbers are more significant with Black men. And we'll show you the graphs, show you what that looks like. But this came up on Call-In and people were like, can we talk about the decline of college enrollment for Black men? So we'll go into a little bit here, and then I'm going to tell you some of the things that they left out as to why this is an issue, why this is happening. Let's go ahead and go on a little bit more here. Before stepping foot onto Howard University's campus, Skylar Wilson knew she would see more women there than men. But just how many more stunned her? Howard, one of the more elite, historically Black colleges and universities in the nation, is only 30% men, 19% Black men. I was like, wow, said Miss Wilson, a 20-year-old junior. How is that possible? Howard is not unique. The number of Black men attending four-year colleges has plummeted across the board, and nowhere is this deficit more pronounced than at historically Black colleges, we say HBCUs. Black men account for 26% of the students at HBCUs, down from an already low 38% in 1976. This is according to the American Institute for Boys and Men. There are now about as many non-Black students attending HBCUs as there are Black men. Let's pause there for just a second. There's a couple of things happening here. I worked in higher ed for about 11 years. It was over 10 years, about 11 years-ish. So there's a couple of things at play here. Number one, I know this New York Times article was published this month, but this has been a trend for years, right? There's been articles published about this years ago that is just continuing to decline. Having worked with admissions process for colleges, I do think it's important that people understand something that this article leaves out. And it's a little bit different now considering SCOTUS has removed affirmative action from universities. When you apply to these schools in the past, when I was in those positions, people get a certain number of points. And I want to explain what that means. It means that we have Jay-Z and Beyonce, okay? Just pretend they're not famous. We have Jay-Z and Beyonce, and they both apply to Howard University, or let's say even a PWI. Let's say Howard University, and let's say they apply to American University. They're both in DC. They're both Black, but there's something different about one of them, right? So as a Black applicant, as a Black male applicant at that point, you would get a point because you were Black, right? And to be very clear, the test scores count first. When we had to sort through those applications, the very first thing we sorted by were the test scores, then the GPA, and then those other factors came in later. So I have 2 seats left, and I got Beyonce and I got Jay-Z, okay? Or 1 seat left. I can only take one of them. So Jay-Z gets a point because he's Black. Beyonce gets a point because she's Black. However, Beyonce gets another point because she's a woman. That's 2 points for her, 1 point for him. The point that I'm trying to make is this. It's not even so much that Black men aren't applying. That's part of it. But in the past, when they did, and I sat in during these admission, long meetings, oftentimes what would happen is that the female card trumps the Black male card, because now you have someone that has 2 criteria, female and Black, versus someone that has 1 when you're talking about diversity. Yes, this is real and it does happen. And I've tried to tell people about this for quite some time. This has been an issue. So some of those applicants do get looked over because of that reason. That's one part of it. Let's get into a little bit more. The decline has profound implications for economic mobility, family formation, and wealth generation. Raj Chetty, a Harvard economist, goes on to say that the causes are many. Higher college costs, the immediate financial needs of Black families, high suspension rates in high school, and a barrage of negative messages about academic potential all play roles in the decline of Black male enrollment and college completion. Howard estimates that its cost of attendance for undergraduates easily exceeds $50,000 a year. So we all know that finances is a big factor. College is more and more expensive, and more often than not, usually we are the ones that will have to apply for financial aid, right? especially if you're trying to go to a school like Howard. I mean, I went to a state school for undergrad, so Howard, there's no way I would have been able to afford to go there, right? So we know that finances in itself is going to be an issue. But one of the things that's mentioned here, I think people need to hold on to are the high school suspension rates. When you look at the numbers, it shows you that more often than not, typically Black male students in high school have higher number of suspension than Black female students. And we'll get into the school to prison pipeline in just a second. But the disciplinary measures actually does make a difference. When you're applying to college, or if you're thinking about applying to college, one of the things, like, these things show up. So if you've constantly been like suspended or expelled or whatever, that doesn't make you a great applicant for a lot of these universities. Also, you feel less inclined to even apply anyway. When teachers show you they don't give a damn about you, when they feel like you're a lost cause, why would you think it would be a good idea for you to apply to go to college when the educators at your high school don't care about you? It's a whole other conversation that needs to happen there. If we're serious about reducing race gaps in economic opportunity, household wealth, etc., then our attention should be squarely focused on economic outcomes for Black boys and men, period. Full stop. That's from Richard Reeves, who's the president of the American Institute for Boys and Men. So, and I'll leave this picture here as I say this. The male to female ratio, when we talk about colleges, let's do undergrad. Even when I was in undergrad, which was a long time ago, there was more women. Even when I was in undergrad, it was, I can't think of one school that my friends went to where it was the other way around, where it was more men than it was women, unless you're going to a school like MIT, right? But MIT has even gotten better about that. So what's this really about? Do you guys remember last year, before the election, when they were interviewing Black male voters? One of the things that was said is that Black male voters were looking to be entrepreneurs, were looking to own businesses. They were interested in business. That was something that continued to come up, right? Well, I want you to think about how things are today. Nowadays, you don't have to go to college to be an entrepreneur. It can help. You can go to business school and pay a lot of money for an MBA. You can do those things, but you don't have to. Even some of the students that I advised at the business school at BU told me afterwards, this was a great program, but I could have learned all this online. We live in a creator influencer society now. Why would you pay all this money or take out student loans to attend school if you want to be an entrepreneur or influencer when you can do that without going to college? Why would you do that? You literally have people on TikTok making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. You have influencers on Instagram making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Why would they pay to go to college? That's something to think about there. We also talked about the fact that the tool belt generation is coming back around again, where more men in particular are looking into professions like welding, which pays really well, carpentry, which also pays well. There is a shift that is happening. I covered the tool belt generation last year, but I want to show you this as well. And this is another one that I think we need to be real here, folks. When I talked about the suspension rates, why have the declines been especially severe for Black men? Let's get into this part. Men college going rates are declining across all races and socioeconomic groups, but some of the steepest drops have been among Black males. Nowhere is that pronounced more than in the public two-year colleges, where the number of Black male students plunged 21.5% in the spring of 2021. For Black teens, who are more likely than those from other demographics to be raised by single mothers, The dearth of male teachers leaves them without relatable role models to encourage a focus on academics. They often get the message from peers that being openly smart or spending too much time on schoolwork is uncool. Black boys are more likely to be disciplined for behavior that might be tolerated in a white student. Those who attended under-resourced schools are less likely to have access to college preparatory courses and college guidance. If they do make it to college, they're more likely to be diverted to remedial classes that could discourage them or slow them down. And then I'm gonna get to the pandemic part here in just a second. This is especially important. School to prison pipeline, folks. Who was usually a part of the school to prison pipeline? Black boys. So some of them don't make it. They don't make it from high school to college. And when you're constantly being disciplined, you're constantly written up, you constantly have to go to the principal's office, right? That doesn't give you the impression that the people there actually care about you. And I've seen it myself with my eyes. Yes, they do discipline Black male students harder than they do other students. I've seen it. So why would you want to do that? Why would you even think about going to college? If the current educators that you have in high school are not there for you, don't show you that they actually care or give a damn, why would you think that the educators at a university would? Things to think about. The pandemic. This is another one. We can't forget about this, folks. The COVID pandemic here. The pandemic coincided with a series of high-profile police brutality incidents that shook the confidence of young Black men that American society is just and their future is theirs to shape. They were more likely to live in households with shaky internet access and attend schools that struggled to keep students engaged virtually. As the pandemic dragged on, they were especially likely to feel cast adrift. And this is one of the things I screamed about during the lockdowns. These schools, these public schools, when they sent all those kids home and said, you're going to learn virtually on your laptops, they assumed every student had a laptop. They didn't think about the fact that some of these kids in Roxbury and Dorchester don't have their own bedroom. They're sharing a room with a brother or a sister. And now you got all four of them in one bedroom trying to learn remotely, and everybody don't have their own laptop. They didn't think about those things. School performance declined during that period for that reason. They didn't think about the fact that some of these kids live in communities where they don't have access to strong Wi-Fi. And that in itself is also a disruptor. The point is, it's discouraging. The point is, it makes you feel like you're sitting there, you're trying to learn, and you can't even hear what the teacher is saying because the connection keeps getting lost. That's frustrating, and you shouldn't have to deal with that in a learning environment. These are the things that people didn't want to acknowledge during that time. So there's a number of things that are happening here, folks, but you have to see it's across the board, not just with Black men, although it's the highest with Black men. What's behind the growing gap between men and women in college completion? Let's just take a look here at this chart. This goes back to even in 2021. That's why I told you it's not new. Women in the US are outpacing men in college graduation. So you can see the difference here. Okay, percentage of adults ages 25 and older with a bachelor's degree, this graph here. Women 39, men 37%. Oh, I don't know what happened there. I think I accidentally clicked on it. Sorry. This graph, percentage of adults ages 25 to 34% with a bachelor's degree. Women 46%, men 36%. So you can see women going back to 2021, that was already starting. So there's a couple of things when we think about the fields that women tend to go into and that men tend to go into. Like I said, if we think back to what those guys said last year, what they wanted, what they were looking for in a president, they were interested in business. They said, we want business, we want entrepreneurship, those types of things. Like I said, nowadays, you don't really have to go to business school to make that happen. It helps, but you don't have to do it. 2, look at the fields that women tend to go into, right? We tend to go into fields that are a little bit more nurturing or caretaker roles. We're more likely to become teachers, nurses, or you guys get where I'm going with this, right? And I'm telling you, I can count on my hand how many Black male teachers I had growing up. So that's something to think about. And if men are going into those fields that don't require a college degree, like welding or carpentry, then so be it. And then they don't have to worry about student loan debt or anything like that. The concern that the New York Times article had was that decline that they're seeing at the HBCUs says, oh, well, that may be a disruption for Black women who are trying to find like their future significant other or future husband at universities. Because a lot of times it's where people like meet their future husband or whatever. But if you want that to change, then you kind of got to give the Black male students the same respect that you give the Black female students. And in my years working in education, I haven't seen that. Haven't seen it. So if they don't feel like they're getting what they need at these schools, why would they want to go to school again for another 4 years? Something to think about, folks. Something to think about. Let's go ahead and get to the comments here. Thank you, Dre. This is another BM hit piece. I'm not accusing you. Trade school is pushed towards Black youth, which is Black men are overrepresented in trade school. There you go. And Focus. I wonder what the acceptance rate is for Jewish men and women. Thank you for being a member for 2 months. I have no idea. Skylar says it's so many things. Part of it is that Black boys aren't being socialized to go to college like girls are. There are households where the daughters graduate college, but the brother doesn't. Thank you, Marlon. Most four-year colleges, I believe, are like the medical industry in America for profit. I could be wrong, but should be single payer. Sassy says, there used to be free college in this country. Ronald Reagan and racism tore it down. Yeah, University of California. Thank you, Dolan. This convo, my entire Black ass life, not to mention the corporate racist ass work environment. Bless you, Sabby Abby. Thank you. Thanks, Janice. There used to be paid training for employment. Yes. Companies decided to outsource that by requiring degrees for entry level when college pricing exploded. That part right there, Janice. Thank you, Better You. Thank you for an informative, insightful analysis of the college story. If only they refer to us as men instead of males in these articles. We are men. Thank you, Better You. All right, guys. Eric, we can go to part 2 of Type VNC. Thank you. All right. And I think we are moving on to the final story. Yeah, final story. And then we have a quick update on Carmelo Anthony. Yeah, we're going to the AOC story. Okay. Listen up, folks. All of the signs that we're seeing right now are pointing to the fact that it appears that AOC is probably going to run for president in 2028. But here's the reality. The reality is we know the Democratic National Committee are not going to allow AOC to be the nominee. We already know this. How do we know this? Because she's taking grassroots donations, because she's not signed on with AIPAC, she's not taking money from big money lobbyists, that type of thing. So this is what we know, right? And I worry because I see it happening all over again, where people are getting excited about her, just like they did about Bernie, just like I did about Bernie, like some of you did about Bernie, only to be let down in the end because the DNC picks the nominee and the DNC wants someone who is status quo. Don't believe me? That's where this seems to be heading. Check this out. Do you guys see that AOC raised $9.6 million in 3 months, smashing her own record? She raised $9.6 million. It says it here. She raised $9.6 million in the first 3 months of the year, more than doubled her second highest quarter, a massive haul that comes amid increasing calls by progressives for her to mount a 2028 primary challenge against Senator Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. Like, people have been calling for her to run against Chuck Schumer, but I don't think that's where this is headed. AOC, who now has more than $8 million in cash on hand, has spent recent weeks barnstorming the country with Bernie Sanders. So here's the thing, folks. When you are in a safe district, which she is, you don't raise that kind of money unless you're trying to pursue something bigger. Because she doesn't need it. She doesn't need that type of money, right? Now that I have said that, I told you guys before, people were asking, like, what are Bernie and AOC asking people to do as a part of these rallies, right? They don't really come out and specifically say that. And that's because I believe this oligarchy tour is basically Bernie Sanders' way of passing the mantle to AOC. This is AOC's possible presidential tour. Bernie's not doing all the speaking. She's doing some of the speaking too. And I think that's what's happening here. I mean, everybody knows Bernie Sanders is not going to run for president again. Don't believe me? Check out this ad. She already has an ad that plays like a presidential ad.
This movement is not about partisan labels or purity tests. It's about class solidarity. It is about the thousands of you who came out here today to stand together and say our lives deserve dignity and our work deserves respect. Because it will never be just institutions and officials alone that uphold our democracy. It will always be the people, the masses, who refuse to comply with authoritarian regimes, who are the last and strongest defense of our country and our freedoms. We are at a crossroads, oligarchy or democracy, but we cannot have both. Los Angeles, I've made my choice. We must fight the oligarchy that has created this nightmare.
But not the Democratic Party's oligarchy. See, this is the problem, right? Like, yeah, you should fight back against Trump and Elon Musk. You should fight back against all the billionaires. But the problem is, right? Kamala Harris supports oligarchy. Kamala Harris was a corporate candidate. AOC and Bernie Sanders endorsed her. When Biden was still in the race, they endorsed Joe Biden. So part of the reason why we got into this mess in the first damn place is because the Democratic Party is not a truly opposition party. The Democratic Party should be a grassroots funded party, not taking corporate money. And then you would be a true opposition to the Republican Party, but you're not. How are you a true opposition to the Republican Party when you got Democrats voting along with Republicans? How are you a true opposition to the Republican Party when you have Democrats voting with Republicans to censure other Democrats? You see, Chuck Schumer pulled the mask off for a lot of people, but many of us have been paying attention for quite some time. They've been doing this, folks. It's just that Chuck Schumer's vote captured mainstream media attention. But AOC and other squad members along the way have also been voting against their own base and values on key pieces of legislation where it could have made a difference. So as you see this ad, does this not kind of remind you of a presidential ad?
And that is why I have never taken money from lobbyists or corporations, and it's why I never will. But beyond elections, our task is to build community, block associations, volunteer groups, church organizations, PTAs, activist organizations, because community is the most powerful building block we have to defeat authoritarianism and root out corruption. This is the path to guaranteeing health care to every American, to establish a living minimum wage, to take on skyrocketing rents and mortgages, to tackle the climate crisis, and establish a country where the American dream is actually possible for all of us. Because we know, Los Angeles, that a better world is possible, and we are willing to do something about it.
You see this, guys? Yeah. See, so it's speaking just like that. And yeah, she'll be old enough. She might already be old enough now to run, but she will be, right? You see it here where she's in Montana at Missoula.
Stitching together all of these unlikely places, quote unquote, right, across the country, whether it's Idaho or Utah or Folsom, and now here in Missoula, we're sending a very strong message, and they are getting nervous. What this is that, you know, in many ways, this is something that transcends party, it transcends partisanship. This is the makings of a mass movement. These are the makings of a populist uprising.
So you see, she's calling it a populist uprising, right? Now, why is that important? If you saw the debate between me and Cenk Uygur, remember what he said. He's starting a new populist movement. So similar to Justice Democrats, but a different name and under a different thing right here. Don't believe me? Watch how Bernie kind of passes, in a way, he kind of passes the torch over to her.
All right, y'all. So I'm calling it now. AOC is running for president.
Oh, sorry. This is the Nico part. Yes. Nico really kind of lays this all out. I think he did a really brilliant job. Check this out.
All right, y'all. So I'm calling it now. AOC is running for president, and it's a problem that we need to talk about. Now, I know many of you are probably thinking, how the hell could you know if she's running for president in 2028 and 2025? Now, if you've been following me for a while, then you remember, I predicted that Tulsi Gabbard was going to run in 2020 and 2017. I predicted Carmelo was going to run in 2020 and early 2017 before they released the information about her meeting in the Hamptons. I also predicted that Bernie would be running in 2020, even though many people thought that he would sit out once they found out Tulsi Gabbard was going to run. Now, the reason I was able to predict all these presidential candidates running years before they actually announced is because there are a set of very specific metrics that you can actually look at to figure out what someone's intentions are politically as it pertains to running for president. In the case of AOC, she's been touring the country with Bernie Sanders, has done at least 13 major rallies for this Fighting the Oligarchy campaign, which doesn't really make any sense because her district is in New York and she is safe. So why would you be touring the country while there's a President Trump in power?
And have you guys also noticed that none of the other members of the squad joined Bernie Sanders on this oligarchy tour? It's her. So pay attention to that.
Instead of whenever there was a Biden in power, for example. And why specifically would you be touring the country with Bernie Sanders, who obviously was one of the most popular presidential candidates in history? She hasn't really introduced any new legislation. Bernie hasn't really introduced any new legislation. They're not actually trying to galvanize people behind a very specific cause outside of this general idea of fighting the oligarchy. And to be very frank, these tours will not change anything at this very moment. But it does let a lot of people know who one of the most popular, quote unquote, progressive candidates in history is probably standing behind if she were to run for president. On top of that, AOC has ramped up her television interviews since the start of January 2025. Just like Kamala did, just like Tulsi did, and just like Bernie did whenever they ran for president in 2020. They're even saying that AOC is quote unquote non-committal to a presidential run, and that her decision will be based on whether or not the Democratic Party is running someone progressive enough for her liking. Now, obviously, fundraising isn't strange, but going out of your way to fundraise so much is strange when, once again, you're in a clearly safe district in.
Yeah, and she's raised like over 9 million. Like, Nico's correct here.
No one looks like they're going to touch you there. It's because you're feeling your coffers. And donations aren't really just a metric to figure out how much you can spend, but it's also a metric to gauge interest and know just how committed people are to you if you do decide to run. And I want to be perfectly clear. When she announces every actual anti-war independent leftist needs to loudly scream, fuck no. We will not allow another fake progressive to run in the Democratic Party that's already preparing to screw her over, steal millions of dollars from working class people, pretending like she has a chance to win, you know, like Bernie did, pretending she's going to fight the ruling class, when in actuality, she just had the last 4 years to do a fighting the oligarchy campaign rally across the country and didn't do a motherfucking thing. If you couldn't challenge the Democratic Party while they were actively financing and supporting genocide, why in the hell would we believe that you would fight on behalf of the people and challenge the Democratic Party if you were to sit in the Oval Office?
She is working tirelessly to secure a ceasefire in Gaza and bringing hostages home.
This is one of the scarier parts for me. And this is why I do get really concerned when I hear people say they want to vote for her or whatever, because I think people are going to forget. I think 2028 people are not going to remember her making this statement, which was a lie, which even Ilhan Omar called her out on that statement, right? The thing that scares me so much about this with AOC is that I see her doing some of the same things that Barack Obama did. I see AOC trying to charm people just like Barack Obama did. AOC tends to show up to say all the right things at the right time. I remember Obama Obama said time for a change in the wars in the Middle East. I remember all of these things. And that is what irks me about this. Because what I think is that AOC is a female Barack Obama in the making, where she starts off with good, like progressive, like policies, etc. But she's already wavered on key things, right? Like we saw her do the webinar conflating anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. She was willing to do that. That's why AIPAC didn't come after her like they did Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush. We saw her cave on the Iron Dome vote. We saw her this lie here, working tirelessly for a ceasefire. Even her own comrade had to call her out on that. They've been trying to make AOC a thing since she got into Congress. I'm trying to tell you guys, this is the same person who told you that she didn't care if she was a one-term congressperson. But now she seemed to be on the path to run for president.
You wouldn't stand up for Tara Reid just because Joe Biden was running as a Democrat.
Well, I think a lot of what we can look for is look at the aims that the survivor is asking for. And while a lot of folks, again, are trying to jump to the political implications, she has never explicitly said, don't support Joe Biden. She hasn't explicitly said anything in terms of a political remedy that she wants. If anything, it sounds like she simply wants to be heard.
You wouldn't admit that Bernie Sanders, Tulsi Gabbard, and other candidates were getting cheated just because you didn't want to challenge the Democratic Party directly. You wouldn't call out the corrupt process for the Democratic primary this year. You went out there and spoke at a Democratic National Convention that didn't let a Palestinian speak because they were scared they were going to bring up genocide. After you, by the way, said that you know that there are a lot of people who don't even want Kamala to be a nominee, and yet you went along with it all. You didn't want to call out the Democratic Party as they were pushing to fund neo-Nazis in Ukraine. You didn't want to call out Joe Biden as he militarized the police state in ways that we had never seen before. And then you went and lied on Jill Stein.
That part right there. And I don't want people to forget about that. The lies that she told about Jill Stein, that was a snake. For people who don't know, you know how AOC won her first term? You know how she won? It was Green Party members who helped her. It was Green Party members who canvassed and knocked on doors. That's how she won. That's who helped AOC win in that district. And then what does she turn and do? Now that she's comfortable, she smears the Green Party. Now, see, AOC is not going to tell you that. That's why I have to tell you that, because a lot of people don't realize that.
Because you deem her as a threat, even though you supposedly support the same progressive policies that she has advocated for.
You're not serious. You're not to me, it does not read as authentic. It reads as predatory. I'm sorry. I'm just saying it.
I mean, you couldn't show a single lick of conviction while you had no power and nothing to lose, really. So why the fuck would we vote for you and give you power? How the hell would you act when you have everything to lose? So as we would say in Brazil, no caia esse golpe. Do not fall for the scam. Fool us once, shame on you. Fool us twice, shame on us. But if we let AOC fool us for a third time, it's y'all's fault. So the time to start campaigning against her is now. And what you tell people to do is invest in mutual aid, invest in direct action. Do not support the duopoly. When they tell you, well, then who would you support? Boost up third parties. Do literally anything but donate money to AOC in the Democratic Party. And of course, don't donate money to the Republican Party either. It's time for us to take our power back, and we're not going to gain that power through supporting fake ass leftist fucking cosplay candidates like AOC.
This is the story. 6 years ago,
yeah, I think Nico really lit the fire, right? He really lit the fire. The thing is this, folks. I think they kind of wrote this, right? This is written, but here's the reality. The DNC is not going to let her be the nominee. You're going to end up with the same issue that you have with Bernie Sanders. So all that money and energy will be thrown towards AOC. And then they're going to tell you the same thing. I know I didn't become the nominee, but go ahead and support the corporate Democrat that the DNC chose. That's what it's going to lead to. And this cycle will just continue. And it makes sense they would pick someone like AOC. She's one of the perfect people to pick to sheep herd people into the Democratic Party because she's popular. Think about these things. So Nico's right. When say what else you should be doing, we should be doing mutual aid, building more mutual aid chapters, which I do here. And we do over at RBN. The mutual aid workshop will be next Saturday, by the way. I'll give you more information about that next time I go live so that you can join the mutual aid workshop so you can start mutual aid chapters where you are. Guys, the president of the United States is not going to get us out of this shithole. No, a politician alone is not going to save you. We have to save each other. That's the same for her too. So people got to realize that. Now, if you do want to vote, I say vote third party. Nico's right. We really got to break this duopoly. It's got to go. Vote third party, vote independent, however you want to do this. But I'm trying to tell you guys, and I'm calling it right now, I don't trust this at all. And I'm calling what I did not see with Bernie. I'm calling it with AOC. I didn't see this with Bernie going back 2016, 2020. I found out after the time. That this type of behavior, you look at Bernie Sanders' rally here, where the woman, the protest was pulled out. Now people are saying, oh no, they're pulling her out. But who could have stopped this? Bernie and AOC could have stopped this. Look.
We have more income.
So the police are taking her out because she has a Free Palestine banner, and they're trying to remove her because of that, right? Isn't this insane? So what should have happened there is Bernie Sanders has the microphone at that point in time. He could have told them, let her be. Let her be. Leave her alone. You're seeing them being pulled. We saw them pulled out of Biden rallies, right? Biden events and Kamala rallies, and we see them pulled out of Trump stuff and all. We saw that. But now you're seeing it happen to Bernie and AOC rallies. And Bernie still won't even call it a genocide till this day. So I'm trying to show you where this is all going. We really, really do have to pay attention here. And then this part, this is really interesting. I'm trying to show you what the Democratic Party is going to do. They already talking about it now. They making fun of even David Hogg, right? Who came on to talk about things need to change in the Democratic Party. Watch how they pick. I'm trying to show you guys. This is a repeat of 2020 all over again. Listen.
Insane or intuitive? Tonight, Democrats are fighting over one high-profile party leader's plan to primary their own. David Hogg is a Parkland survivor and now a vice chair of the Democratic National Committee. He's also the head of a PAC that is putting $20 million behind an effort to replace Democratic lawmakers that Hogg sees as, quote, ineffective, asleep at the wheel members with Democrats who have the energy, passion, and vision to meet this moment with the urgency our country deserves. Now, the idea does not seem like it's going to win Hogg any popularity contests among his Democratic peers.
If you are an effective leader and you're listening to this right now and you're a member of Congress, you have nothing to be worried about. And if this brings you anxiety, you should ask yourself why that is, because there are young people out there ready to meet this moment, and our party must do a better job to show our young people that we're here to win them back. And look, I know that what I'm doing here isn't going to make everybody happy, but I'm not here to make everybody happy. I am here to win.
Mandela,
you'll be gone or you'll fall in line. He'll be gone or he'll fall in line. Listen to what they say.
Green for the Republican Party.
What is the Democratic Party vice chair doing with a PAC to take out Democrats?
I will say nobody's entitled to any position.
Yeah.
And you know what? Nobody, I'm just going to say nobody's entitled to any position that they're in, right? Like, and he's not going to make friends by, launching this endeavor. But the fact is, there are problems, there are challenges that we have as a party and things that do need to be addressed. The favorability of congressional Democrats is lower.
Is this the way to do it?
I'm not going to say if that's the way to do it or not.
I mean, you got to say something.
Hey, look, but I'll tell you, I got into politics.
See, they don't want change. That's the problem. This was part of the problem Bernie had. Corporate media was against him. That they don't want this. They don't want change. They want to protect the status quo.
Saying you're not in an elected position right now.
I know, but I got into elected office by primarying somebody.
Right.
That's how I got into office. So like, I'm not.
Nobody is saying don't primary somebody. I think the question is, Democrats have a lot of problems. Is the issue really taking out their own or adding to their numbers? Is it addition or is it subtraction?
I think the Democrats would benefit from some new energy, quite frankly. And
we love the fact that two Democrats going at each other.
Let me just tell you something. I don't really care what Republicans love or Democrats love. My only point, I'm not a party loyalist. I'm a people loyalist. And the people right now are frightened and upset. And it used to be, one party's playing chess and we're playing checkers. Right now, one party is playing checkers and the Democrats look like they're going up against somebody playing Grand Theft Auto. They are completely out of their element. And it is frustrating from Chuck Schumer's vote. And they are institutionalists who believe in the party of yesteryear, the goodness of the party of yesteryear, which is Black folks I ain't never believed in. So I do think there are members who die in their seats. They do need to tee up a younger generation of people. And I think a lot of the lack of support that Democrats are getting across the board right now is because a lot of people do not see them pushing back and fighting back against a rising authoritarian government. And if David Hogg wants to go after and do that, I applaud him. Like you said, nobody is entitled to elected position.
That is really what Justice Democrats was supposed to do, right? It was supposed to be a hostile takeover, what David Hogg is talking about. But the people at this table, it's like oh my God. It's like, they're just like, how dare he even say that? You can't just tell people to get out. I told you guys, all of them need to go. All of them. Everybody, all of Congress need to be wiped clean and start all over. It's too corrupt, too much corruption, too much big money running around. All of it need to be wiped out. All of it. And I'd love to see more independence in Congress. I'd love to see Green Party candidates in Congress. I'd love to see those type, like it need to mix it up. Mix it up. But they don't. This is the problem. Again, what I'm saying, that's what AOC is going to run into. This problem right here.
How are you going to add to the numbers? Because at the end of the day, you have to add.
You do.
Politics is
Well,
math.
the biggest number we need to add is the number of people who are voting for us. And if we can inspire confidence in the voting public, if people are showing up excited to vote for Democrats, not just to vote against Donald Trump, I think we're in a much better place.
Is doing cartwheels. I can't believe the Democrat Party elected this young man to be as a vice chair, because anybody who says we're going to fight each other, we're going to eat our own.
Well, Donald Trump just purged everybody and took over it. Donald Trump just took the hostile.
See that? Anybody that says we need to fight each other, we need to eat our own, like, of course they're against this, right? Like, they're like, how dare they even pursue this type of thing? That's what someone like AOC would be up against. If the primary is AOC, Wes Moore, Gretchen Whitmer, probably even Cory Booker's crazier ass. He'd probably be up there too. 9 times out of 10, the DNC is probably going to pick Wes Moore, regardless of who people actually vote for, because we saw that happen in 2016 where they gave states that Bernie Sanders won to Hillary Clinton. And Bernie should have walked away from them back then. And said, yes, Chris Hedges. Yes, Shama Sawant. Yes, Jesse Ventura. I will start a third party movement with you. And we wouldn't be in this mess. I really do believe it, that if that would have started back then, that's almost 10 years ago, I think it would really be something strong today. I just don't want I don't want you guys to waste your fucking money. I don't want people to throw their money at another Bernie type presidential campaign when you know that that person is not going to be the nominee. All right, guys, we have one more quick one for you that I have to address, and then we will do call in. I am going to still do call in, I promise. I will have to do rapid fire call in tonight. You'll have to be quick because I do have early morning. I'm going on to Jamal Thomas show tomorrow morning. So just FYI, but I got to say this. Okay. There are a number of influencers that have been lying about Carmelo Anthony's family. And I want to say this, like I said before, regardless, whether you think he was wrong, right, whatever, put that aside for a second, because this part of the discussion is about people just spreading blatant lies about the family. And it started with this New York Post article here. Carmelo Anthony renting a $900K home in a gated community with family, bought new car after release on bond in Austin Metcalf murder case. This is what stirred the pot. The New York Post article here. And unfortunately, if you go into the article, we're going to get into all of that tonight. But unfortunately, a number of influencers on Twitter, including people like Benny Johnson, Tim Pool, even some of the Black conservatives went along with this shit. Already had put out videos and retweets saying Carmelo Anthony's family took money from the Give, Send, Go that you guys sent for the case, and they used it to buy a brand new home. A blatant, bold lie. The owner of Give, Send, Go came forward and said that the Carmelo Anthony family had not withdrawn any funds from the Give, Send, Go account. And none of these influencers corrected the videos or the tweets that they put out. No, it's not okay. Whether you agree with Carmelo Anthony or not, we have to raise our voices about this. I am so tired of people saying they're independent media and they're doing sneaky, grimy crap like this that corporate media does. If you put that information out there, you need to issue a retraction. Period. It's disgusting. Sick. So much that they said things, the things that they said They made it sound like his family otherwise couldn't afford to have that home. Do you know how many black families in Texas and down south have it like that? Quite a few. And the racist comments that I saw on Twitter, and some of you I'm greatly, greatly disappointed by. Greatly disappointed. I was like, I can't believe they actually fell for this foolishness. Going right along with the racist people on Twitter saying, oh, we know they couldn't afford that home. Carmelo Anthony's mother issued a statement about this. This shouldn't have even had to happen. Shouldn't have even had to happen. But here we are.
In wake of this tragic incident, our family has been under attack. Whatever you think what happened between Carmelo and the Metcalf boys, my 3 younger children, my husband, and I didn't do anything to deserve to be threatened, harassed, and lied about. The lies and false accusations that have been said about us, especially over the past week, has been overwhelming. The lies and their amplification put my family in danger, as well as everyone in our community, everyone involved in the investigation, from the police, the attorneys, and the court staff. Our address and my husband's previous employer's address has been put on all social media platforms. My husband had to take a leave of absence because he's afraid what may happen to our family. His mental health is deteriorating day by day. We have endured death threats. My 13-year-old daughter is afraid to sleep in her own bedroom because she's fearful of what may happen to her. And let me be clear, the claims that were used about the public donation to buy a home or anything else are completely false. We have not received a single dime from the Give, Send, Go fundraiser.
Not a single dime. Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, and even Melanie King. I'm shocked. Carmelo Anthony's family should sue the New York Post and make the New York Post issue a retraction. They started this bullshit. And the article reads racist as hell, as if they couldn't afford the home because they're black. How else could they afford that home? And to make it worse, put the white commentators aside for a second. To make it worse, the black commentators who went along with this shit, Jason Whitlock, feeding into it so that you can get the approval from your audience. How dare you? How dare you? This is an absolute disaster. It's disgusting and it's gross. Now you sit there and you tell people, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Well, it appears that Carmelo Anthony family did that. Carmelo Anthony is not poor. I tried to sound the alarm about this early on. He didn't come from a poor family. They actually have money. Imagine that, a black family who has money. And for all of you to go around online retweeting this racist crap, you should be ashamed of yourselves. And to Jason Whitlock, they'll turn on you too. Nick Fuentes basically called you, what did he call him, a token? Nick Fuentes basically called you a token recently. So they'll flip on your ass too. No shame, no humility. I could not even believe it. The owner came forward and said he did not withdraw the money. But the racist part about it is the fact that you convinced yourself that they couldn't afford the home unless they did. That's the problem. And none of you want to issue a retraction. People just put out videos quickly just for clicks. Nobody checked to see if the information was fucking true. So you can't say you're better than Fox News. You can't say you're better than CNN. You can't say you're better than MSNBC when you're doing the same thing that they do. It took TMZ to get it right, God damn it. We'll let her finish here.
And the co-founder has stated that clearly. In the reality, we were just notified yesterday that we could begin to withdraw funds. And it still takes several days to receive those funds once a request is made. I don't know why we are being targeted and discriminated against before a fair trial. Our son deserves the same rights under the law that everyone is afforded to. He's been raised in a two-parent home with structure, stability, love, and we put God first in everything that we do. We believe in the Constitution. We believe in the laws of this state, but those laws must apply to all of us, not just some of us. To be clear, we will not speak publicly about specific details of what happened under the tent on that rainy and awful day. There's an active investigation that everyone involved wants to be full and fair. We believe in legal process, and that is where the truth will come out. To the family who experienced the loss, my heart truly goes out to you. To those who have supported my family, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We ask for your continued support, patience, and prayers as we navigate this difficult process. Thank you.
Very, very, very unfortunate. Like, it's absolute mess. Guys, I warn you how corporate media, what they're doing with this. I told you what people are trying to do. They're trying to distract you from the case at hand. Nobody knows what's going to happen until that trial takes shape. But you didn't see them do this to Kyle Rittenhouse. Hey, what'd you do with that money that was sent to you? Did you spend that money? Did they ask Daniel Penny what he did with the money that was sent to him? No. So if people can't see this for what this really is, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't know what to tell you. And for the Black commentators who went along with it, shame on you. Shame on you. We're going to go to a quick break. I'll come back and we'll do call in. Eric, you're going to come on. I think we got some super chats.
We got super chats. All right. All right. So this is the part of the show where I come in from the background to the foreground. Eric T. Red here. And so this is, we'll be transitioning to the Zoom Hangout we used to call call-in. Sometimes we call it Zoom call-in. And Sabby's actually creating the room during the break, and then we'll be giving you the link. And call-in is where you can tell us what you think, agree or disagree. You can talk about the stories we had on or other things, whatever you like. And you can have your camera on or off during the call-in. You can just come in and listen. Whatever you do is cool. Let's see what we got for some super chats here. And some of these have been built up in previous stories. Let's see. Thanks for the super chat, Raven, who says, it's because they're doing it to sabotage the race as a whole by trying to create an unnatural imbalance of power between Black men and women. Yeah, I think that's calling back to the Black men going to college and not going to college story. Thanks for that super chat. And thanks for this one, Eric Torres, who says, I'm sorry, Elmo, I am all checked out. All right. And thanks also for this one. Did he put it in twice? Yeah, looks like it came in twice. All right. Thanks for those super chats. And thanks for the super chat, Marlon. He says, if she's running around with Bernie as a Dem, she's next gen gate guard. Don't fall for it. And thanks for this one, Ad Kid, who says, AOC sellout and Zionist supporter. Rallies simply a setup for money. In 4 years of Dems in the White House, she never fought for Medicare for all or living wages. BS. I hear you. Thanks for that super chat. And let's see what else we got in here. We got a good number queued up. Thanks, Raven, for the super chat, who says George Orwell is turning over in his grave. And thank you, Marlon, for this one. AOC is a plant, an agent, and AOC is a plant, an agent, an acronym already. Saying yeah, she's an acronym already. Yeah, I mean, you know, she does seem to have had a pretty easy time in a way of coming onto the scene and getting to be a big deal. You know, with the whole AOC stuff, I mean, she's you know, she's made it clear, you know, who she is. Like one of the things I think of is that, you know, when we were talking, like Sabby in the Cenk interview was talking, you know, they brought up at least briefly force the vote, and one of the biggest things in force the vote, it wasn't even so much to actually get it to succeed, which would have been nice, but a big part of force the vote was to expose people. You saw when force the vote went down, you know, who was real about bucking power and getting real change and who wasn't, and AOC was very much on the wrong side of that. Thanks for the super chat, Kevin Wayne. Where can I learn more about mutual aid? Well, I would say stay tuned to this channel, Kevin, and also you know, and in the Zoom hangout too. And thanks for the super chat. Where is the love? His family needs to sue them for slander. Talking about the New York Post article or claims, shall we say? Thanks for this one, Kendall Brown. It's a race psyop to cause division. Carmelo seems guilty. It's not as big as media coverage. And thanks also for this one, Raven, for this super chat. This is why the Lord said it to come out of her, my people, so I may judge her. A judgment of white America is going to be a heavy and terrifying judgment by the Yah. Thanks for that one. And thanks for the super chat, Focus, who says, I didn't believe that lie. I got ambushed by Jays and Tethers for saying it couldn't be true. All right. Yeah, so I'm sure one of the things that we'll be talking about in the Zoom hangout is the Cenk Uygur interview. And you know, I can say, like, for my reaction for it, I mean, I was frankly kind of surprised that he was going that hard on the whole, you know, we need better Democrats, we need good Democrats tack. Like, you know, my joke was like, you know, Cenk, like 2016 calls and they want their strategy back. I mean, that was something that, you know, we maybe could have believed, you know, when Bernie first ran, you know, but by the time of Bernie's second run, I mean, it's pretty clear that the Democratic Party, I mean, really is a dead end. And, you know, it's just not a place where progressive policies are going to happen. You know, it's amazing that he wants to, you know, he's actually pitching the idea of doing Justice Democrats over again. And in the intervening years, the Democratic Party has gotten even more corrupt than it was when they ran Justice Democrats. And so, like, you know, this idea that they're just going to do it again, and it's really down to this, you know, very simple thing. It's a uniparty. Both Democratic and Republican parties, you know, serve the billionaire class. They operate in the interest of the top 0.1%. And, you know, anyone who's telling you otherwise is either doesn't get what's really going on, or they're trying to fool you into funneling back into that uniparty. And so, you know, so when you operate that way, and, you know, part of the reason why I'm so much into the concept of having the 11 demands, which you can see at 11demands.org, and And that kind of a list is that really exposes what's going on. If you line up Bernie or AOC against the 11 demands, it's really clear how they fall down. It's just, and the other part of it is that Democrats have had ample opportunity to make things happen. The so-called progressive Democrats could have formed a voting bloc at any time and demanded some progressive things, and it's clear that they didn't do that, and it's clear that they're never going to do that. And AOC, is really, if anything, she's going to get worse when it comes to progressive policies. Is really the only way she's going to operate. And so one of the core parts of 11 demands is MCDS, and it's money, corruption, demands, and solutions. And so one of the things I want to work on with all that is getting people to actually use the phrase, use the acronym MCDS, money, corruption, demand, solutions. And when you do that, it explains what's really going on, right? What's really happening. And if you do it, if you go through all the letters, you always get to the D part, the demands, and then that gets you into the 11 demands part. So MCDS, use it or lose it, or just use it.
All right. We are going to call in, ladies and gentlemen. Call in. We got to go quick because I have tomorrow morning, I'm going to be on Jamal Thomas's show at 8 a.m., the morning show. So you got to be quick on call in tonight. The link is pinned to the top of the live chat along with the passcode. I'm going to go ahead and open the room while we are on the show, like I do what I do. When you get into the Zoom, please be sure that you mute yourself. And if you want to speak, at the bottom of the screen on Zoom, there's an option to raise your hand. That lets me know to select you and call on you. But just make sure that we're quick with it tonight. Because like I said, I got to do Jamal Thomas early in the morning. That didn't come out right. I got to go on Jamal Thomas so early in the morning.
No.
Oh my God, that was bad. Okay. Yep. So people are already in the Zoom room. If you come in a little bit later, we won't be going too long tonight, but if you come in a little bit later, you can go to sabbysabs2.com to also get that link to the Zoom. So the room is already open. People have already joined. Eric, I can go ahead and make you a co-host.
Just getting it launched now, I think. I don't know why it's going
slow.
Right. Try this. Now I'm getting in. Come on. Yeah, I want to join. It's asking me if I want to join the meeting. It's like, yeah.
I know Zoom gets more, I feel technical these days. Okay, I see you now. And I'll
One
just
of the problems with Zoom is that they just have too many options. It's like a zillion options. But anyways, I think we are started. And we can get this show on the road. I'll see you in there.
All righty, guys. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me. I am taking tomorrow night off. I got plans with the fam. You know how that is. We are going over to call in. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.